Caught my husband bragging about his affair with my best friend for 3 years. I immediately kicked him out, took back my $50,000, and left him homeless. I'm in my hallway at 6:47 p.m. Thursday. Holding this chocolate ganache cake. I spent 4 hours creating after work. I can hear Jake and his friends crying in the living room, howling, inebriated, laughing. I left work early, picked up Olivia from daycare, dropped her off at my parents' house, grabbed all the party items from Target, and ran home before him to set up his surprise 32nd birthday party. But he beat me home. 6 mature men are sprawled across my sectional with beer cans everywhere, watching a TV show that makes them cackle like hyenas. Our wedding video. They're viewing our 4-year-old wedding video. This dessert has frozen me in the doorway. James nods to the TV. Look, here it comes. Jake says, oh man, watch this. I see myself in my wedding dress talking to my aunt at the dessert table. Jake and Rachel, my high school best friend, are near the bar. My maid of honor, Rachel. The video shows him leaning in to kiss her. Really kiss her. No peck. His hand covers her waist and more. I was too busy with 220 guests to see this at my wedding. But the video shows it clearly. Jake visits pals. Remember when I kissed Rachel during the reception? She could not resist me that night. Chris is dying laughing. Your wife never suspected a thing. She was too busy with guests. Jake shrugs and says, she's so naive. I'm still standing there with cake in my hands, decorations in my car, and my phone in my back pocket, slowly pulling it out and recording because what the hell is happening? Jake takes another beer drink and continues. Been secretly meeting her for 3 years now. His boys high-five him. Jake says, honestly, I only stay because her dad pays our mortgage, and she does everything around the house like a maid anyway, so why would I leave? James says. 3 years. Man. That's impressive. They all clinked their glasses. Clinked them to rejoice. My hand started shaking after 3 minutes of this. They compared Rachel to me, saying Rachel is more fun, and doesn't complain about finances or garage cleaning. How I'm a live-in home manager who sometimes shares his bed. Jake stated that. In-house manager. I gently backed out of the hallway, put the cake on the kitchen counter, walked outside, and sat in my car in my driveway for 10 minutes, breathing, to avoid committing a criminal. Since Jake's venture failed, and he was unemployed for 10 months, my dad has paid our mortgage for 3 years. My dad writes the check every month because Jake stated he was recovering and needed time. My dad feels Jake is a nice husband, since he acts well at family dinners. I work full-time, handle everything at home, and take care of Olivia, who turned 5. Meal planning, invisible labor, and presumably becoming the punchline of his repulsive friend's jokes while he sleeps with my best friend, 3 years. He's seen Rachel for 3 years. That automobile was where I performed the math. That suggests it began during pregnancy. Jake would pretend he was going to the gym or seeing his friend Ben for drinks, while I had hyperemesis gravidarum and couldn't eat for months. When I was sick and couch-bound, he came home at 10 p.m. Perfume-scented. I believed him when he stated Ben's girlfriend used too much perfume, and got it on him when she hugged him goodbye. Calling my sister Emma from the car. Not even hi. Just started ranting and she goes, what? I say, yeah. So I just found out Jake has been cheating with Rachel for 3 years by walking in on him watching our wedding video with his friends and bragging about it. Emma says, I'm coming over right now. I say, no, because he doesn't know I know yet, and I need to figure this out. She convinced me to send her the video first. Smart. I texted it to her phone and myself from 3 different numbers to be sure I had backups everywhere. I returned inside. Still viewing the wedding video. While doing our first dance, Chris said, dude, you're literally dancing with your wife, while thinking about her best friend. And Jake said, makes it hotter. Honestly. I went from the living room to our bedroom, closed the door, opened his closet, and started pulling clothes off hangers and shoving them in garbage bags. The huge black ones took his shoes, fitness gear, and silly graphic tees he thinks are antique but make him look like a middle school shopaholic. I could hear them laughing outside. I filled 4 trash bags before hearing footsteps. Jake opened the bedroom door and asked, babe, when did you get home? I was standing there with garbage bags full of his belongings. I gazed at him as he asked, what are you doing? Holding a beer. Pizza stained his shirt. This is my husband, whom I've supported financially and emotionally while he messes with my best friend and mocks me to his boys. I add, I came home to surprise you for your birthday. Had your favorite cake and decorations in my car. Revisit. Revisit it. A veritable dia. Instead, I got to hear you tell your friends how you've been meeting Rachel behind my back for 3 years and only stay with me because my dad pays your bills. His face was like a vampire. He stammered and said, "Babe, wait. I can explain that wasn't." I said, "Do not call me babe ever again. I have the whole thing on video." He changed tactics and said it was locker room gossip. He exaggerated to impress his friends. I asked, "So, you weren't kissing Rachel at our wedding reception?" He answered, "That was nothing. Just a drunk mistake 4 years ago. That's it." I played the video on my phone. He claims to have met her for 3 years. He called me gullible, saying my dad pays our mortgage as a joke. I nearly dropped my phone when he grabbed it. I threatened to call the police and remove him if he touched me or my phone. He recanted but began a speech about marriage being hard and making mistakes. But we can overcome this. Pack whatever he needs for the next few days. He's leaving. He can remain with James, Chris, or anyone else, but not here. Nowhere near me or Olivia. He kept negotiating, saying he has nowhere to go, and begging to sleep on the couch, promising not to bother me. I said hour and returned to the bedroom to gather his items. He followed me, stood in the doorway calling, "Please. Just let me explain everything." I turned around and screamed that there is no acceptable answer. That I don't care why, how, or his excuse. He lied to me for 3 years, slept next to me at night, played happy family with our kid, ate meals I cooked, lived in a house my father paid for, and slept around with my best friend, whom I trusted. He claimed Rachel seduced him because he was weak. I laughed in his face and told him he's a grown man who made choices and can own them instead of blaming others. Then my phone rings. Jake's mom, Linda. Leave it on voicemail. She called again immediately. I reply and she says, "Jake just called me very upset, saying you're kicking him out over a misunderstanding and you won't listen to reason." I add, "There's no misunderstanding, Linda. Your son has been cheating on me for 3 years with my best friend, and I have video evidence of him bragging about it to his friends." She sighed. She adds, "All men have their moments, dear. Don't throw away your marriage over boy talk." Just hung up on her. After 3 texts, I disabled her number. Jake stood there and said, "See, even my mom thinks you're overreacting." I lost it. Tell him his mother raised a man who believes cheating is boy banter, lying is okay, and using his wife's family for money while demeaning her is fine. That his mother is the last to judge our marriage. I gave him the garbage bags I'd packed and ordered him to grab the remainder. He took them to his car while I sat on the bed breathing again because adrenaline was shaking me. I questioned him if our marriage was a lie when he returned for more goods. Did he adore me, or was I convenient? This Rachel thing simply got out of hand after he declared he loved me. I asked when he last saw her. He remained silent. He should inform me now if it's recent. He finally revealed they had lunch on Tuesday, 3 days earlier. After seeing Rachel for lunch while I worked, he returned home, ate my dinner, and played with Olivia before bed without saying a thing. I informed him, I want a divorce. He cried. He cried and implored, "Please don't do this. Think about Olivia. We can fix this." I answered, "Olivia deserves a mother who respects herself enough not to stay with a cheating liar and a father who knows actions have consequences." He packed 3 more suitcases. I followed him around the home to make sure he wasn't stealing. I told him, "That's Olivia's for her games, and he can't have it." He argued, "Take it up with your lawyer." Before he left, he turned around in the doorway and said, "You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. We're good together." I said, "We were never good together. I was just too busy managing everything to notice you were a lying cheat." Trying to hug me again. Step back. Left finally. I locked the door after him, all locks, deadbolt, and chain. Then I locked every window. Verified twice. I then sat on my kitchen floor staring at that terrible chocolate cake I made for his birthday. 4 hours of baking and decorating with his favorite fondant toppers. At 9:30 p.m., I forked cake from my kitchen floor platter. On Thursday night. My phone is exploding. Jake texts and calls. His mom texts. My brother James texted that I'm too tough. My sister called to check on me. Dad called after Emma told him what occurred. I haven't called Mark, Rachel's fiancé. No, I should. He deserves to know. But I can't handle one more thing tonight. Emma was eventually contacted to fetch Olivia up from our parents tomorrow morning and take her to preschool like usual. Olivia shouldn't see me like this. My folks can watch her over the weekend while I decide. To those wondering, why didn't you just throw the cake at him? I agree. However, that cake was too gorgeous for his face. Not sure what I'm doing. It's possible I handled this wrong. My only knowledge is that I'm sitting here at practically midnight on his birthday party. Instead, I'm Googling divorce lawyers, eating cake alone, and trying to figure out how to tell my 5-year-old daughter that daddy won't live home anymore. Jake arrived around 7 a.m. So update coming. Worsened greatly. First update. I barely slept Thursday night. I checked my phone every 20 minutes, because Jake kept texting me. We need to talk. Please don't do this, and I love you, and this is fixable. Near 2 a.m. He turned to I. Deserve a chance to explain myself properly. I didn't answer. Stare at my dad paid ceiling in bed as this man who's been using me thinks he deserves anything. Around 6 a.m. I finally fell asleep. Then 7:15 a.m. Banging on my front door. Strident thumping. My neighbor Megan across the street was grabbing her newspaper and gazing when I grabbed my phone and went to the living room and saw Jake outside in the same clothing as yesterday, knocking on the door and saying, "Open up, we need to talk." Another neighbor stopped to watch his dog stroll. Jake sees me through the window, and yells louder about how I can't reject him, since we're married, and he has rights. I unlocked the door but left the chain lock on, and told him to leave, or I'll contact the cops. His words. I just want to talk like adults. His foot was in the door gap as he said, "Adults don't cheat on their wives for 3 years, and then show up screaming on their doorstep at 7 a.m., when the whole neighborhood can hear. Shove the foot." I smashed it on his foot, and he yelped and sprang back. I'm yelling at him to leave in 60 seconds, or I'll call 911. Megan across the street pulled out her phone like she was ready to call. Jake noticed her, got back in his car, and rolled down the window, shouting at me for being stubborn and hurting our family. I returned inside shivering from wrath, not terror. The chutzpah of this individual to cause a scene after everything he done. I called my dad to explain. Dad, the calmest guy alive, was angry. He said he's coming over and we're replacing the locks today, without Jake receiving a key. He stated he's also calling the mortgage company to remove Jake's name because he's been paying. My dad arrived an hour later with Mom and Emma. My mom brought breakfast sandwiches from our favorite deli. I broke down when I saw my mom since I'd been holding it together all morning. My kitchen was where I showed them the whole movie. After watching with her hand over her mouth, my mom stated, "That boy is not welcome in this family anymore." My dad was furious, and his hands were shaking. He said, "I trusted him. I helped him. I paid for his life while he disrespected my daughter." Emma intended to drive to Jake's house and cut his tires. Mom had to calm her. Then my phone rings. Rachel called. The crowd fell silent. I gazed at the screen and Emma said, "Do not answer that." I said, "Oh, I'm answering." And I placed it on speaker. Rachel says, "Hey, I know this is awkward, but can we meet somewhere to talk?" I responded, "Talk about what exactly?" She went hesitant, and then added, "Jake called me last night crying saying you kicked him out and I just want to explain my side." I laughed out loud. Told her no side justifies sleeping with your best friend's husband. She gave this whole spiel about how it just occurred, and neither of them wanted for it to go this far, and they tried to stop so many times. But there are true feelings. True sentiments, says. Real feelings like that makes it better. I wondered how she could sit at my kitchen table every weekend for brunch, hold my baby, and ask about my marriage while destroying it. She says, "It's not that simple, and things between me and Mark haven't been great. And Jake understood me in a way Mark doesn't." My mom took the phone and left. Told Rachel she's a disgrace and a bad friend, and should never touch me or this family again. Rachel tried to speak, but my mom hung up. All of us sat startled. Emma asks, "So, are we telling B?" I say, "Yes, absolutely. He deserves to know. But here's the issue. I lack Bo's number. Rachel and I were friends, but I only saw B at group events, and don't follow him on social media because we're not close. Since his Instagram profile is public, Emma wrote him a DM from her account saying, 'This is about Rachel and Jake. Please call me. It's urgent.' He called her back in 10 minutes. Emma replied and identified herself. Then gave me the phone. I told this man I hardly know that his fiancée had been cheating on him with my spouse for 3 years. Long quiet on the other end. He questioned, "Are you sure?" I said, I have video of Jake bragging about it to his friends. Could I give it to him? I used Emma's Instagram DM. Bo called back 5 minutes later. He put down a deposit on their venue last week for their 4-month wedding to Rachel. He kept asking me how long, and where they'd meet. Which I don't know. I say, I'm so sorry. And I only just found out myself. He says, this is not your fault. Thank you for telling me. He hung up. My mom had us eat breakfast sandwiches even though nobody was hungry. She said, you need food in your system because today is going to be a long day. She was accurate. Around 11 a.m. The locksmith changed all the locks. Jake's mother, Linda, visited him at work. Unannounced visit to my house. My dad answered the door and instructed her to go. She pushed past him into my foyer, saying, I need to speak with my daughter-in-law. I came out of the kitchen and saw her standing with her purse to her breast, looking serious. She said, sweetheart, I know you're hurt. But you're not thinking clearly. I told her Jake lied to everyone, including his daughter, for 3 years while sleeping with my best friend and using my father's money. Not a mistake. He repeated that choice. She says, marriage is about forgiveness and working through hard times. Every couple has rough patches. I asked her if she'd stay with her husband if he cheated on her for 3 years, and she got huffy, saying, that's different, and not the point. My mom then told Linda to leave my house immediately. Right in my entryway. They started. Linda says, my mom raised me to give up too easily on my marriage. My mom says she taught me self-respect and not to be treated like garbage. The locksmith stood with his drill, looking miserable. My dad intervened and physically led Linda out. She turned and said, you're going to regret this, when Olivia grows up without her father. I broke down. Screamed at her that Jake can be Olivia's father, without living here, and lying to me, and that maybe if she'd raised him better, he'd be a great person. She departed. Dad secured the new lock behind her. The rest of Friday morning, I called divorce lawyers. Found a Monday morning meeting buddy. My dad is paying for it because I can't afford a divorce lawyer on my wage. And Jake won't pay for his own. Around 2 p.m. Emma dropped Olivia off at my parents' place after preschool, so I had to fetch her up. It was terrifying because how do you tell your 5-year-old everything is changing? Olivia was having fun playing with her toys, so I told her, Daddy is staying somewhere else for a little while. She asked why, and I explained. Mommy and Daddy need some space right now, but we both love her so much. She seemed comfortable with that. Returned to playing. I know things will grow harder. But kids are resilient. She came home and we made her favorite pasta for dinner, and watched Encanto a million times. She fell asleep on the couch next to me, and I stared at her little face thinking about how I'm helping her too. Thus, she learns that her mother doesn't tolerate mistreatment. Thus, she learns relational boundaries. My phone kept ringing. Jake texting Olivia to see her. Mom texts stating I'm cruel. James texted that Jake is struggling and I should listen. My only text response was to James, telling him his friend Jake brags to him and everyone else about cheating on me will help him deal with the consequences. James can struggle with him if he disagrees. I get 19 texts from Jake on Saturday morning. He sent walls of text about how sorry he is, how he'll do everything, and how I'm his love and Rachel wasn't important. I finally responded, telling him to contact him through my lawyer, and exclusively concerning Olivia. He called immediately, and I didn't answer. He called 6 more. I blocked his number. He called me from random numbers. I'd answer thinking it was the lawyer's office or something urgent and Jake would beg to chat. I blocked 4 numbers Saturday alone. Emma sent me a screenshot Saturday night. Rachel wrote a lengthy Facebook post explaining her struggles, asking for privacy, and emphasizing that people make mistakes, and good friends stick by you. Some mutual friends were encouraging, but others were confused and asked what occurred. Then Mark commented one line, after saying, Rachel, you don't get to play victim when you destroyed our relationship and multiple families. It went off. People seeking explanations. Mark answered yes when asked if Rachel cheated with her best friend's spouse when she was pregnant and raising their child. I didn't request that. I had checked out of Facebook to avoid seeing anything. Emma texted me screenshots, and Emma said everyone we know saw it, and many commented on Jake's Facebook asking if it was genuine. Jake deactivated Facebook completely Saturday night. Rachel's was private. The person on my first post, who suggested the trash was taking itself out, was right. My phone rang with unknown numbers. Finally, my aunt asked if the Facebook thing was true. She stated the whole family is shocked and supports me once I said yes. My cousin, another aunt, and my dad's brother, all called to check on me and tell me they support me, which was sweet but stressful because I had to explain the scenario 19 times. Jake returned to my residence around 9 a.m. Sunday and repeatedly rang the doorbell. I peered through the peephole and saw him carrying roses. I didn't enter. He shouted through the door that he knows I'm in there, and we need to chat. Thank goodness Olivia was asleep and didn't hear this. Since I blocked his number on my phone, I contacted him from my laptop using iMessage, and told him to leave, or I'll call the police for harassment. He texted, "Harassment? Really? Babe? I'm your spouse saving our marriage." Called my dad. He drove over, and confronted Jake in the driveway. I watched from the window, as my dad said, "If he shows up at this house one more time without permission, he'll file for a restraining order himself." Jake tried to argue, but my dad said he's not discussing it. Jake better be grateful he's not getting beat for what he did to his daughter. Emma came over Sunday afternoon, and we meal prepped for the week while Olivia played in the backyard. Emma kept asking if I was okay, and I'm so angry, hurt, and betrayed. She told me I should take time off work, but I need my job, my paycheck, and Olivia's stability. Sunday night, I finally sat down and made a list of everything I need to do. Divorce lawyer Monday. Figure out custody arrangement. Talk to HR about updating my emergency contacts and beneficiaries. Cancel the joint credit card. Separate bank accounts. Tell Olivia's preschool that Jake can't pick her up without my permission. The list is so long and overwhelming that I wanted to cry looking at it. But I'm done crying over Jake. It said, "Mark, can we talk?" I don't know what to talk about, but I said, "Okay." And he asked if he could call me, and I replied, "Yes." Update 2 coming since that phone chat with Mark revealed something I wasn't anticipating, and now there's a whole new situation. That phone call with Mark on Sunday night wrecked me, and I'm still trying to process everything. He called around 10:30 p.m. and apologized for calling so late, but he couldn't stop thinking about everything and needed to talk to someone who understood. I told him I get it and asked how he was doing. He said he confronted Rachel on Friday night after I sent him the video. She denied it at first. Mark persisted, and she broke down and admitted they'd been seeing each other, but insisted it was only a few times. I asked him if he believed that, and he said, no. Then he went through her phone. Rachel left it on their kitchen counter while taking a shower, so he picked it up and went through everything. Her passcode is his birthday, so it wasn't hard. He found months of Instagram DMs between her and Jake. As I suspected. But here's what made me feel sick. They weren't just hooking up, Jake saying he thinks about Rachel constantly, and wishes he could wake up next to her every morning. Rachel saying she feels more herself with Jake than she ever has with Mark. While I was making Jake's breakfast, doing his laundry, and raising our daughter, and he was texting another woman about leaving me. Mark said there were messages from when I was pregnant with Olivia. Rachel told Jake she was jealous watching him play happy family. Jake said he wished he had a baby with Rachel instead. Mark asked me if I knew about Jake's Instagram account under a fake name to message Rachel without anyone seeing. I had no idea what he was talking about, so Mark sent me screenshots through Instagram DM. Jake created a fake account with a random guy's photo as the profile picture, and a generic name like James Peterson or something. That's how they communicated most of the time, so if anyone saw their phones, it wouldn't look suspicious. Mark only found it because Rachel saved it in her close friends list or something technical. Mark went through everything with me for an hour on the phone, and told me Rachel had been lying to him for months about where she was going, saying she had work events or girls' nights when she was meeting Jake at this hotel 30 minutes outside town. They always went to room 347, which they mentioned in multiple messages like it was their special place. I wanted to shout and tell Mark that this wasn't just adultery, but a hidden relationship with plans, routines, and their own world alongside ours. Jake told me 3 years, but I don't know more. Mark found the earliest Instagram DM from March 2023, right after Olivia turned 2. When Jake's job was failing and he was spiraling about money and I was working overtime to keep us afloat. I asked Mark what he would do, and he said he ended things with Rachel and told her to leave their apartment. He asked me if Jake would try to manipulate his way back in, and I said yes. He's already shown up at my house twice, and called from 6 different numbers. Mark goes, yeah. Excuse me. Jake told Rachel I always forgive him. Like this is a pattern. Like he's done stuff before. And I've let it slide. I asked Mark if Rachel said anything else about that, and he said not really, but it was clear from their messages that Jake thought I was manageable. We talked for almost 3 hours, and by the end, we were exhausted and angry. Mark said he's glad we connected because, at least we're not going through this alone. I told him I'm here if he needs to talk again, and he said the same. I believed him every late night at the office, every long gym session, every weekend he said he was helping James move or meeting Chris for a basketball game. How many times did he come home and kiss me and play with Olivia after spending the afternoon with Rachel in room 347 of some random hotel? Monday morning, I had to get Olivia ready for preschool, and myself ready for work on 3 hours of sleep. I dropped Olivia off, and went straight to Franca's office for my 9 a.m. appointment. According to my dad's research, she's one of the best divorce attorneys in the area. Her office is downtown, and I sat in the waiting room, filling out intake forms, trying not to cry. Franca called me back at 9:15, and we sat in her office for over an hour going over everything. I showed her the Jake and his friends video, said Mark found Instagram messages, and explained the mortgage situation with my dad paying. She took notes and said, "This is actually a pretty straightforward case, since we have clear evidence of infidelity and the financial situation favors me." Franca said that's reasonable given the circumstances, and asked if Jake will fight for custody. I said, "Honestly, I don't know what Jake will do at this point because the man I thought I knew doesn't exist." She outlined next steps. Thanks for watching. I manhobbit of time. She estimated that filing for divorce this week, serving Jake the papers, starting discovery, and arranging temporary custody and support could take 6 months to a year, depending on Jake's cooperation. I left her office feeling weird, like this is really happening. Olivia will grow up in a split household. I went to work after that and tried to focus, but my coworker Annabelle kept asking if I was okay because I looked terrible. I told her during lunch that I'm divorcing. And she was shocked because Jake and I always seemed happy at company events. Nobody warns you that you may appear happy, while slowly decaying within. I made it through the workday, got up Olivia from preschool, and stopped at the grocery store for food for the week. I looked up as we walked through the produce section, and saw Rachel standing by the apples like it was a normal Monday afternoon. We both froze. Olivia was sitting in the cart, playing with her stuffed bunny, oblivious to the tension. Rachel opened her mouth to say something, and I turned my cart around and walked the other way. Actually followed me through the store, saying, "Please wait. I want to talk for 5 minutes." By the cereal aisle, she caught up and stopped in front of my cart, saying, "Please." Olivia turned to Rachel and said, "Hi, Aunt Rachel. Why is Mama mad?" I urged Olivia to close her eyes and play with Bunny for a minute, then glanced at Rachel and said, "You need to leave me alone right now." She said, "I'm sorry." "Okay, I'm sorry, but Jake and I fell in love without planning it, and it's been torture seeing you not know." She became quiet when I asked whether it was torture enough to end. I responded yes. Continued cruelty on everyone was your choice. You could have told me. You could have broken up with Mark. You could have done anything other than lie for 3 years. She started crying in the cereal aisle, saying she knows she messed up and hates herself and lost everything. I told her to hate herself that she didn't lose everything. She tossed everything away. She said Jake really loves me, and he's devastated right now, and maybe I should give him another chance because everyone makes mistakes. I laughed, and asked her if she's seriously standing here defending the man who destroyed both our lives while crying about losing him. She said, "It's complicated and I wouldn't understand the connection they have." I told her I understand everything. Two selfish people found each other, and decided their wants were more important than everyone else's feelings. Rachel wiped her eyes and said she hopes I can forgive her someday because she misses her best friend. I told her we stopped being best friends the second she kissed my husband at my wedding, and lost any right to my friendship when she kept lying to me for years. I pushed my cart past her and finished shopping while she stood there crying. After getting home, Olivia asked why Aunt Rachel was sad, and I told her that grown-ups argue and Aunt Rachel did something that hurt Mommy, so we're not going to see her anymore. Olivia seemed okay with that answer, but I know she'll ask more questions. I returned to work Tuesday, and felt like I was just going through the motions, answering emails, filing paperwork, talking to clients, while my life was imploding. Jake texted me from another number Tuesday afternoon, "Can we meet somewhere neutral to discuss Olivia's custody?" I replied that his lawyer should contact mine. He said he doesn't have a lawyer, and can't afford one, and I said, "That sounds like a HIM problem." He called immediately from that number, and I answered. He started talking about how I'm vindictive and using Olivia as a weapon, and he has rights as her father. I told him should have considered his rights before cheating. I questioned him directly whether he and Rachel were intending to leave us and be together. He stated, "I'm not being fair," and treating him too hard. After quieting, he asked, "Where did you hear that?" I told him Mark found everything on Rachel's phone. All the Instagram messages. All their plans. All their discussions about leaving us. Jake tried to say they were just venting or fantasizing, but I asked him if he thinks I'm stupid enough to believe that. He said I'm twisting everything to make him look worse. I said he made himself look bad by cheating on his wife for 3 years, and planning a secret future with her best friend. He said I don't understand how hard things were for him when his business failed, and I wasn't emotionally supportive enough. So now it's my fault he cheated because I wasn't supportive enough while I was working full-time, raising our daughter, managing a household, and dealing with his depression spiral. He says, "No courtroom needed. We can work this out ourselves." I answered, "No. We really can't because I don't trust a single thing he says." He yelled about me being impossible, and I hung up. He's blocked 5 phone numbers, and I'm sure he'll find a 6th. Wednesday morning, my dad called and said the mortgage company confirmed Jake's name was removed from everything, and my dad is now the sole payer. If Jake tries to claim ownership, he'll have legal proof he never contributed. On Wednesday night, Olivia asked when Daddy would come home. I had to sit her down and explain that he would live elsewhere, but she would still see him. She asked if it was because of her. And I nearly broke down. I told her, "No baby, it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes grown-up relationships change, but Mommy and Daddy love you so much." She seemed to accept that, but then she asked if Daddy left because I was mean to him. I wanted to scream because Jake said something to her. I said, "No darling. Mommy wasn't mean. Daddy made some choices that hurt Mommy, and we're going to live separately, but it's not your fault." She cried a little, and I held her, and watched Bluey until she fell asleep on my lap. Thursday morning, Franca called to say the divorce papers could be filed and served. She asked where Jake was staying, and I said probably with James. She said she'd hire a process server to find him. Thursday afternoon, Olivia's preschool director called to say Jake showed up early to check out Olivia and they wouldn't release her because I'd updated the pickup list on Monday to require my written permission. Jake argued with them, until they threatened to call the police, and he left. I called Jake immediately on FaceTime using Olivia's iPad since he's not blocked there. He answered and I went off. I told him he doesn't get to show up at Olivia's school causing problems and scaring the staff. He said he has a right to see his daughter and I'm keeping her from him. I told him he can see Olivia when we have a legal custody arrangement through the court, and until then, he said I'm being unreasonable and vindictive and trying to turn Olivia against him. I said the only person turning Olivia against anyone is him, by showing up at her school and getting escorted out. He tried to argue more, and I ended the call. Friday, Jake showed up at my work, making everything worse. Update 3 coming because when he showed up at my office with his mom, it made the biggest scene and security had to get involved, and now his whole family is losing it. Last update. Friday afternoon, I'm at my desk billing for a client case when my coworker Annabelle comes speedwalking over looking panicked. "There's a man in the lobby demanding to see you, and he has an older woman with him and they won't leave." I told Annabelle to phone building security and I'd handle it. She said, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not, but I'm doing it anyway." Walked out to the lobby and saw Jake in khakis, and a button-down holding a job interview, and Linda in a full pants suit holding a legal case. Our receptionist looked uncomfortable. Jake says, "Thank God, we need to talk right now." And I tell him to leave my workplace immediately. Linda says, "Now dear, we're not leaving until you hear us out because this has gone on long enough and you're being unreasonable." I tell the receptionist to call security. Jake says, "That's not necessary." And I said, "You don't get 5 minutes. You receive nothing. You're pestering me at work." Linda pulls out her phone and shows me a voice memo. She plays it, and Jake sobs and says he can't live without me and Olivia, that he's falling apart and his mom is frightened he'll hurt himself. Her response to my question about playing a recording of her adult son crying to get me to take him back was, "It's not manipulation. It's showing you his suffering from your acts. My deeds." I laughed so hard the receptionist jumped, telling Linda that Jake is in pain because of his choices and consequences. Jake tried to hold my hand, but I snatched it back. He said, "Please come outside and chat to me for 10 minutes. I asked him, "What part of I have nothing to say to you does he not understand?" The speaker said, We have a daughter and must resolve this as adults. He said. You're really going to throw away 3 years of marriage, without even trying? I informed him we're using lawyers, and the judicial system, to resolve our issues. I responded. You threw it away when you stuck your tongue down my best friend's throat at our wedding reception and then kept screwing her for 3 years. The receptionist gasped. Linda says. There's no need for that kind of language. I told her she doesn't need to be here since this is between me and Jake. As Jake's mother, she has every right to defend her son when he's being mistreated. Security arrived. 2 men in uniforms asked if there was a problem, and I said yes. These people need to leave the building. They're harassing me. Jake tried to argue with security that he's my husband, and can talk to me, but security said not on private property when she's asking you to leave. Linda started ranting about how ridiculous this is, and that she's never seen anyone act so coldly toward their henders. Jake is attempting to tell security we're going through a hard patch, but we're working it out. I told security. No. That was a lie. I don't have a restraining order yet, but security took it seriously, and told Jake and Linda to leave or they'll contact the police. Jake said, I love you, with pitiful puppy dog eyes. Please don't do this. I said. If he loved me, he wouldn't have cheated on me for 3 years. Humiliated me in front of his friends. And used my family's money while planning a future with someone else. Linda said. He made a mistake. I replied. A mistake is forgetting to. A mistake is not a 3-year Instagram and hotel scheme. Security practically escorted them out. Jake was still talking to me over his shoulder while being taken to the exit, and Linda was threatening to phone someone I don't know. After they went, my boss came out of his office and asked if I was okay and needed to take the day off. I told him I'm fine and sorry for the disruption, and he said it's not my fault, and if those people show up again, I should call the police immediately, not wait for security. Sat back down at my desk shaking, not from fear, but from rage at Jake and his mother's audacity to show up at my workplace in an intervention, like I'm the problem. Got through the rest of the workday. I picked up Olivia from my parents' house, where she'd been staying after preschool, and drove home. At a red light, I saw 23 text messages from Jake from 2 new numbers. Linda, James, Jake's aunt, who I've met twice, and others saying I embarrassed Jake today and I'm being cruel, and I need to think about Olivia and give Jake a chance to explain. I only responded to James, telling him that if he or anyone from Jake's family contacts me again, I'll file harassment charges against them. Franca called Saturday morning. The divorce papers were served Friday afternoon at Mark's apartment, where Jake has been staying. She asked about the workplace incident, and I told her everything. She said that's helpful for our case, shows a pattern of harassment and disregard for boundaries. I asked Franca about custody, and she said we have a strong case for primary physical custody, with supervised visitation based on Jake's behavior, the school incident, and the workplace harassment. I felt better after she said we'd push for a parenting coordinator to oversee exchanges so I didn't have to deal with Jake directly. The thought of seeing Jake every week for custody swaps was making me sick. Saturday afternoon, my dad, Mom, and Emma sat in my backyard while Olivia played on her swing set. My dad told his lawyer about the mortgage problem, and if Jake tries to claim any stake in the house, we have proof he never paid a cent. My mom inquired how I'm feeling, and I answered, I'm angry, wounded, and relieved. I didn't understand how much stress I was under managing Jake's moods and keeping him happy while doing everything else. Even with the chaos, the house feels lighter without him. Emma said she's proud of me for not caving, that a lot of women would have caved by now with all the pressure, showing up, and family involvement. I told her I'm not caving because Jake will know he can manipulate me forever, and I'm done being manageable. Sunday, Olivia asked when she'll see Daddy again, and I told her we're working out a schedule. I told her, Daddy made some choices that hurt Mommy, and we can't live together anymore. She accepted that and played with her dolls again. Monday morning, Franca called to say Jake finally hired a lawyer, who wasn't great but was cheap and willing to take payments. His lawyer suggested whether we'd rather mediate than go to court. Franca asked what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to go to court. I want a judge to hear the facts and rule because I don't trust Jake to keep our private agreement. Franca said, that's probably smart given everything. I was giving Olivia a bath Tuesday night when my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I usually don't answer those, but something made me pick up and it was Mark. He asked if I had time to talk, and I said, sure, give me a few minutes. I got Olivia out of the bath, settled in with a show, and called him back. He said Rachel moved out of her parents' house, and into an apartment downtown, and has been trying to. He blocked her everywhere, but she keeps reaching out through mutual friends. I asked how he's doing and he said some days are fine and some days he's so upset he can't function. I told him I know it. We vented for almost an hour, and Mark said, "You know what's crazy is they probably still think they're going to end up together. That once the dust settles, we'll both move on, and they can just start their relationship openly. Over my dead body, will I ever accept Jake and Rachel together?" Mark said, "Same." I told him, "After we divorce, Jake can do whatever he wants." I had to attend Olivia's preschool for a parent meeting about her behavior on Wednesday morning. I told her teacher that we're separating and things are chaotic at home, and she was understanding. But she suggested play therapy for Olivia to process her feelings. Franca called me Thursday to say Jake's lawyer filed a motion for temporary custody pending the divorce. Jake wants 50/50 physical custody and child support since I make more money. I laughed on the phone with my lawyer. I asked if he's serious, and she said, "Unfortunately, yes. We'll fight it. That's impossible with the evidence we have." But it shows Jake's delusions. He thinks he can cheat on me for 3 years, humiliate me, use my family's money, harass me at work, and Olivia's school, and then demand 50/50 custody and money from me. Friday morning, 3 weeks after this nightmare began, I dropped Olivia off at my parents' house and met Franca at the courthouse for our first hearing, a temporary orders hearing to establish custody and support until the divorce is final. Jake was there with his lawyer looking miserable. We had to sit on opposite sides of the courtroom, and he kept trying to make eye contact with me. I just stared straight ahead. His mom was in the back row glaring at. The judge read both our papers, and questioned Jake's counsel why he thinks he gets 50/50 custody, given he has an unpredictable housing situation, no regular income, and a history of showing up at the child's school, without permission. Franca calmly presented the video evidence to the judge, who watched it in court with the sound on. I watched Jake's face turn red as his voice echoed through the courtroom, saying he only stays for the mortgage and free housekeeping. The judge was upset. In response to Jake's lawyer's request to clarify, Jake stood up and said it was taken out of context, and he was intoxicated and exaggerated. The judge replied, "Drunk or not? Those are serious statements that call into question his judgment and character." Franca presented evidence of Jake showing up at my workplace with his mother, after being repeatedly asked to stop contact, the school incident, and the multiple phone numbers after being blocked. The judge looked more annoyed with each piece of evidence. The judge ruled that I get primary physical custody immediately, and that Jake gets supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours at a family visitation center with a court-appointed supervisor. Jake looked like he'd been slapped. His lawyer tried to argue, but the judge shut him down, saying, "These are temporary orders, and if Jake can demonstrate stability and appropriate behavior, we'll revisit in 3 months." We left the courthouse, and Jake tried to approach me in the parking lot. I pulled out my phone and started recording, saying loudly, "You are violating the judge's order from 5 minutes ago by approaching me right now." He left immediately, called my dad from the car, and told him, and he started crying happy tears. He said he's proud of me and sorry Jake was a disappointment. But he's glad I'm protecting myself and Olivia. Picked up Olivia that afternoon and went to the park. Just the two of us watched her play on the swings and thought about how different our lives will be now. Single parenting while working full-time, Jake's supervised visits, eventually co-parenting if he gets his act together. But we'll be okay. We'll be free from his manipulation, lying, and using us. I'm done being the woman who does everything, and asks for nothing, manageable, and receiving crumbs and calling it love. Thank you to everyone who said, "I deserve better." You were correct. I'm 32 years old with a 5-year-old daughter, and a divorce in progress. I've never felt more powerful in my life because I chose me. I chose self-respect. You were right that Jake would try to manipulate his way back in. But at least I was ready for it. I ate the whole chocolate cake I baked for his birthday over the first weekend and it was great. I wanted to safeguard my daughter from learning that staying with a garbage person is okay. My partner lied about girls' night to meet her ex. I called the concierge, canceled her ticket, and upgraded mine. 12 minutes to undo 2 years. I scheduled a solo trip after canceling our vacation and receiving the reimbursement. "Where are you?" she texted. And I replied with a selfie from the beach. Before we continue with the video, viewers, if you would like to see more stories like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Regards. For the third time, I was looking at the bag on the bed, and reviewing the itinerary. 5 days, an overwater bungalow in the Maldives, and a nightly rate higher than my first automobile. In order to make this happen, I had saved for 4 months. I worked extra hours, took on side consulting jobs, and skipped every boys' night out to make sure the bank account was secure. It was meant to be a celebration of our 2-year anniversary. It was a Hail Mary though. If I'm being completely honest with myself. Emma had been aloof for some weeks. I didn't have a very difficult day at work. A little far away. Sort of remote, with the phone face down on the table, answering calls in the restroom, and changing the passcode. I always received the same gaslighting menu when I asked her what was wrong. I believed the vacation would resolve the usual. Why do you always have to make everything about you? Or, you're overthinking it. I'm just tired. I assumed that having no cell service and blue water would make her gaze at me the way she used to. It was me who made the repairs. That was my responsibility. The rent was paid by me. The dates were my idea. I managed the situation. I believed I could manage this as well. I folded a clean linen shirt and said, "Did you pack the sunscreen?" Emma took a while to respond. She was furiously texting someone while seated at her vanity. Her thumbs were a blur because they were moving so quickly. She flashed a real, hot smile at the television that I hadn't seen her give me in months. Emma. She leaped and quickly flipped her phone over. "God, David, you startled me." I asked in a steady voice. "What sunscreen?" She picked up a beauty brush and rolled her eyes, saying, "Did you pack it? We leave for the airport in 48 hours. "Yes, David. I packed the sunscreen. You don't have to micromanage me. I'm capable of packing a bag." "I know you are. I'm just excited," she murmured. "Yeah, well, contain it." And turned back to the mirror. "It's just a vacation. You're acting like we're going to the moon. Just a trip." I paid for the entire $9,500 vacation. It was okay that she hadn't added a smell. The lack of enthusiasm stung. But I made a lot more than she did. Instead of taking my partner to paradise, it seemed like I was dragging a teenager to a family reunion. I approached her, and touched her shoulder. I wanted to make a connection. I was in need of some warmth. She tensed up. She became rigid like a statue waiting for a pigeon to fly away. But she didn't pull away. "I'm almost done packing," I murmured. She looked at her watch and said, "Perhaps we could get some Thai food and watch a movie." The time was 7:30 p.m. Tuesday. "I can't," she responded, abruptly getting to her feet. "I have to go out." I felt sick to my stomach. "Go out? Where?" "We have a flight Thursday morning," she answered. "Just drinks with the girls." And reached for her purse. She sprayed the pricey perfume I got her for Christmas. She looked in the mirror. She was gorgeous. In contrast to her buddy Rachel, who typically wore sweatpants to the pub, she appeared to be dressed for a date. "Which girls?" I inquired. Her eyes narrowed as she whirled around. "Why do you need a guest list? Do you want to track my location?" "God. David. Stop being so suffocating. This is exactly why I need a break." "I'm not being suffocating, Emma. I'm just asking." She interrupted me, saying, "I'll be back later." She strolled out the front door, down the corridor, and out of the bedroom, saying, "Don't wait up." The lock clicked. And I heard it. Gazing at the open suitcase containing clothing for a woman who couldn't bear to be in the same room as me, I stood in the quiet of the apartment I had paid for. The denial began to crumble at that point. However, it didn't break, not quite yet. I remained the supplier. I still believed that she would return if I simply loved her more, bought her more stuff, and had more patience. I was a fool. At 2 a.m., she returned home. I listened to her stumbling in while I lay awake in the dark. She had a pricey cologne and gin scent. She never went to bed. She dozed off on the couch. The anxiety in the apartment was unbearable the following morning, Tuesday, the day before our travel. I brewed coffee. She disregarded it. If she was hungover, I asked. She told me to stop talking. We left for work. I was preoccupied all day looking at spreadsheets, but I could see warning signs. It was about midday when I texted her. 5 hours later, she responded, "Hey, just checking in. Still on for dinner tonight to finalize packing?" Those 4 words are the death knell of relationships. "We need to talk when I get home." I got out of work early. As I waited for the execution, my heart pounded against my ribs as I sat on the couch. At 5:30 p.m., she entered. She didn't appear depressed. She exuded confidence. She appeared to be on the verge of quitting a job she detested and holding a winning lottery ticket. Leaning on the counter and crossed her arms, she dropped her keys on it. "So, she began. No, hello. I need to tell you something before we go on this trip. Okay, I replied, preparing myself. Is it about last night? Sort of. The heir left the room and said, Ryan is back in town. Ryan, the one that got away. The college boyfriend she broke up with 2 years ago because he moved to London for a finance job. The guy she had compared me to early in our relationship until I asked her to stop. Ryan, I repeated. I thought he was in London. She didn't even bat an eyelid. He's back permanently. He messaged me a few days ago. And that's who you were with last night. Yes. We caught up. It's been years, David. He's going through a lot of transition right now, and he needed a friend. A friend. I responded as I got to my feet. Anger was beginning to flare up, fierce and searing. She sighed and rolled her eyes so hard I feared they would get stuck. You stayed out until 1:30 a.m. with your ex-boyfriend 2 days before our anniversary trip. While I sat here packing your bags, she said. See this? This reaction right here. This is why I didn't tell you. You get so insecure and jealous. It's unattractive, David. The group fell still as someone said. It's not insecurity, Emma. It's respect. Did you sleep with him? For a moment, I could see the calculation in her eyes as she gazed at me. As she considered her options with him, she was trying to figure out how much truth I could take or how much of a lie she needed to tell to keep her safety net me intact. She said, we just talked. But her tone was unconvincing. He's different now. He's successful. He's exciting. He wants to take me to dinner tonight to finish our conversation, because we didn't have enough time last night. Tonight? I gazed at her. The evening before our Maldivian flight. Yes. Tonight. He leaves for a business trip on Friday, so this is my only chance to see him for a while. She said it so nonchalantly, as if she were informing me she was going to pick up dry cleaning. I told him I'd meet him at 8. With my voice falling to a deadly silence, I said, you're prioritizing a date with your ex over our pre-trip night. What exactly do you need to talk about that takes 2 nights until 1:30 a.m.? She fixed her lipstick, picked up her purse, and looked in the hallway mirror. The sneer appeared as she turned to face me. It was not a grin. She knew she had all the cards, as evidenced by her cocked, haughty lip curl. She was aware that I had covered the airfare. She was aware of my intense desire to make this work. She believed that I was too helpless to take action. Her smirk grew as she replied, you don't need to know the details, David. It's called privacy. We have a history. And I need closure if I'm going to fully commit to you on this trip. Honestly, you should be thanking me for being honest. Don't be insecure. It makes you look small. She repositioned her strap. I'll be back in the morning to grab my suitcase for the airport. You can call the Uber for 9 a.m. She gazed at me, waiting for me to plead with her to stay. Waiting for the altercation that would boost her self-esteem. I felt a snap inside of me. Although it wasn't audible, silence fell suddenly. It was the automated locking and slamming of a massive steel door. After giving her a close look, I came to the conclusion that I no longer loved her. I wasn't even hostile toward her. I had held on to her for too long, and she was just a lousy investment. I let my shoulders down. I relaxed my clenching. I let my expression to become totally neutral. Sure, I replied. For a brief moment, her grin wavered. She anticipated opposition. She anticipated crying. Sure, yeah, I replied as I went to get a drink of water from the refrigerator. If you need closure, go get it. Makes sense. She looked for the trap as she examined me. No. The sneer reappeared, more victorious than ever. She believed she had shattered me. She believed that I was giving in. As she walked past me, she patted my arm and murmured, good, feeling condescending. I'm glad you're finally growing up. See you in the morning, David. Have the bags by the door. Have fun, I said. The door shut behind her. I waited for 10 seconds. Through the peephole, I saw her walking down the hallway with a bounce in her step while texting Ryan. I went to the counter, grabbed my phone, and unlocked it as soon as she turned the corner. I refrained from crying. I refrained from hurling a glass against the wall. I called the concierge travel company I had used to make the reservation. Good evening, this is Platinum Travel Support. The other person's voice said, hi. My name is David. I have a reservation for 2 to the Maldives tomorrow morning. I need to make some changes immediately. I need to split the reservation, I remarked to the agent in a firm, cool, and exact manner. Keep the itinerary for David, last name. Cancel the ticket for Emma, last name. The line paused for a moment. Sir, this is a non-refundable booking. If you cancel her portion less than 24 hours before departure, you won't receive a credit. I understand, I replied. I don't want a credit. I just want her name off the manifest. And I want to use the remaining seat availability to upgrade my ticket to first class. That will be a significant upcharge, sir. Do it. Card is on file. 12 minutes passed. I undid 2 years of planning in 12 minutes. I experienced an odd feeling when the confirmation email pinged. I anticipated sorrow. Rather, I felt lighter. It was the sensation of letting go of a bulky backpack following a 20-mile trek. I continued after that. I entered the bedroom. On the bed, the bag that she had made fun of me for packing remained open. Everything that may be deemed shared was removed. The first aid pack, the additional chargers, and the high-end camera she enjoyed using for Instagram. I just packed the things I needed. I then proceeded to the closet. Then I reached for my duffel bag. I packed my birth certificate, my passport, my laptop, my watches, and the money I kept in the sock drawer. I wasn't simply going on vacation. I was leaving. I surveyed the apartment. It was stuffed with items I had purchased. She insisted we have the Dyson vacuum, the leather sectional, and the 65-inch OLED TV. I was unable to handle it all. Not this evening. However, I could ensure that she didn't settle in. I used my phone to access the landlord's site. I agreed to pay the lease break fee, and filed a notice of intent to quit with immediate effect. I then made calls to the internet provider and the power company. The disconnect was planned for the day I got back from the Maldives. For 5 days, she would be able to use Wi-Fi and lights to figure out her life. She was in the dark after that. I glanced at the timepiece. 4:45 p.m. She was probably chuckling about how predictable and safe I was while having her second martini with Ryan. She was correct. I was foreseeable, consistently effective. I gave the apartment one last glance. No note was written by me. Cash was not left on the counter by me. No rose was left by me. She hated carrying her house key, so I snatched the spare one she always kept in the bowl. I then put it in the trash can. I didn't activate it. I simply left it there, a metal object concealed in the shadows. After wheeling my bag to the door, I got out and secured the deadbolt. I made a black Uber call. The airport hotel is the destination. I had no intention of waiting until morning. At 1:30 a.m., she staggered in, intoxicated. And I wasn't going to risk a confrontation. I was going to get up early, sleep in a king-sized bed with soundproof windows, and begin my vacation without any worries. My phone buzzed as the Uber drew away. Emma texted. Emma and Ryan are having such a serious conversation. Time flies. Avoid staying up late. I may be running late. My carry-on should be by the door. I adore you. I adore you. I studied the text. They appeared to be spam code, which is a random string of characters meant to compromise a system. I removed the thread. At 7:30 a.m., the following day, I was seated in the first-class lounge. It was silent. I had a mimosa and a platter of eggs Benedict. A steely, icy focus took the place of the anxiousness. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass, I observed the plane taxiing on the tarmac. I had my phone on the table, face up. I let Emma's notifications come through quietly even though I had it set to Do Not Disturb. I was interested in seeing the crash timeline. 7:45 a.m. Emma. Emma is presently on her way back. My head aches. Oh no. Have you given Uber a call? I took my mimosa and sipped it. I pictured her in the uncalled Uber, hungover and reeking of remorse and stale smoke, hurrying to the apartment. 8:10 a.m. Emma. I'm at the flat, David. The door is locked. Why? My key was inside. She was without a key. The only functional key I had was in my pocket right now, thousands of miles away from helping her. 8:12 a.m. Pick up the phone, Emma. My voice is pounding on the door. Are you taking a shower? We'll be running late. 8:15 a.m. Emma. Emma. I missed your call. Emma. I missed your call. Emma. I missed your call. The neighbor just allowed me inside the building. David. But you're not responding. I'm going crazy. A piece of toast was buttered by me. 8:20 a.m. I got the super to open the door. Emma. You're where? Where is your bag? The closet is open, but why? She was in the blast zone now. She noticed the drawers were empty. She noticed the laptop was gone. She noticed David's absence. However, her narcissism prevented her from seeing its significance just yet. In a flash of rage, she probably believed that I had left for the airport before her. 8:22 a.m. Because of last night, you petty. Emma. You went to the airport without me. Really? 8:25 a.m. Emma. All right. I'm going to contact Uber. You had better have my ticket at the check-in desk. This is incredibly immature. I looked at the time of boarding. 8:45 a.m. The morning traffic took her 25 minutes to get to the airport. She was going to be brutal. After completing my breakfast, I gathered my belongings. My pocket began to vibrate as I made my way to the gate. She was phoning once more. I allowed it to ring. I got on the aircraft. The flight attendant said, "Welcome aboard, Mr. Last Name," and took my jacket. "Would you like a pre-flight beverage?" Saying champagne. And keep them coming. I took a seat in the pod. It was large, quiet, and private. 9 a.m. The doors of the aircraft were shut. We were resisting. My phone came to life. She'd arrived at the airport. Now was the time. "I'm at the counter, Emma." "You're where?" "You're not visible to me." "Stop playing games, David and Emma. The woman is requesting my passport. Come on over here." I had a clear picture of it. Sweating and a little disheveled, she slapped her passport on the counter and demanded the ticket, which was nowhere to be found. The agent typed, scowled, and typed again. 9:15 a.m. "What did you do, Emma?" "My ticket is invalid," Emma says. "It was cancelled," she claims. "David, Emma, please answer the phone immediately. You're on the plane," she says. Voice message 014, Emma. I plugged in my AirPods. I hit the play button on the voicemail. It was a chaotic masterpiece. Airport announcements can be heard in the background. Her voice broke and was high-pitched. "David. This isn't funny." She responds. "You're in 1A. Get off the plane. You can't just leave me here. I don't have any money on me. Ryan didn't have any. All I need is for you to come and repair this. How was my ticket cancelled? I am your girlfriend. What didn't Ryan do? Give her a ride, please." It made no difference. Now we were using taxis. The engine sprang to life with a scream. Vibrating through the seat was a deep thrum. 9:18 a.m. Emma. Please, David. I have everyone's attention. I'm in tears. Tell them it's an error. Please. Emma. Please don't abandon me. We are living beings. I adore you. I apologize for the sneer, Emma. All right. I was simply worn out. It wasn't my intention. Return. The aircraft sped up. I was forced back onto the leather seat by the G-force. We took off. The cars becoming toys. The people becoming ants. The ground vanishing. Emma realized that she was no longer the protagonist of this film, somewhere in Terminal 4. I waited until the Wi-Fi indicator changed to green and we reached 8,000 feet. I clicked on her chat window. I skipped over the begging and the "I love you" threats. 2 sentences were typed by me. I blocked the number after saying, "Me. You wanted privacy with him. I'm giving you all the privacy in the world. Me. Don't be insecure." I chose a movie, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and totally flattened the seat. My flight was scheduled to last 12 hours. And I was worry-free for the first time in 2 years. The Maldives is just as beautiful as the screensavers depict it. I took a private seaplane to the resort. The turquoise color of the ocean was unreal. The employees called me by name and gave me a cool, lemongrass-scented towel. They wanted to know Mrs. Last Name. "Plans changed," I said with a smile to the host. Without missing a beat, he said. "It's a solo retreat now." "Understood, sir. We'll remove the second setting from your private dinner tonight." The Overwater Bungalow was a spiritual place to enter. A bottle of Dom Perignon on ice, a private infinity pool that blends into the ocean, and glass flooring overlooking the reef. I didn't activate my phone's cellular data for the first 2 days. I only listened to Spotify and read the news on the Wi-Fi. I went swimming with sharks. I had some fresh lobster. I slept for 12 hours in a row. The knot in my chest, which I had assumed was due to work-related stress, turned out to be Emma-related tension. It had vanished. I had a book in one hand and a coconut in the other as I lay on a catamaran net that was dangling over the water on the 3rd day. It buzzed on my phone. The number was not a block number. It was brand new. "The number is unknown. David, it's Emma. I'm using Rachel's phone because you blocked me. You need to stop this. I'm scared. The landlord just emailed me saying we're being evicted, and the power company sent a final notice. The number is unknown. I glanced at the text and asked, "Where are you? Are you seriously in the Maldives without me?" I gazed out to sea. She remained in the confusion. She had to face the fact that she was living an unsubscribed life. To get me to explain, to argue, to care, she tried to drag me back into the muck with her. I didn't respond by typing. For now, words were too cheap. I launched the camera app. I got the shot just right. The vast, dazzlingly blue Indian Ocean in the background. My tanned feet resting on the net's edge. And the champagne bottle perspiring. The read receipt appeared instantly after I received the picture and typed the phrase details. Then came the erratic, desperate dots of someone suffering a breakdown. The typing bubbles. I didn't read them all. Unknown number. You arrogant PR. Unknown number. I hate you. Unknown number. Brad was right. Abu. Rachel's number was also blocked by me. I then threw the phone in the safe after turning it off entirely. I learned how to scuba dive for the remainder of the week. 10 days later, I was back in the city with a fresh outlook and a tan. In actuality, I had accepted a lease for a loft downtown that was farther from our previous area, and closer to my workplace. As I pieced things together from common friends who continued to communicate with me, the fallout was disastrous. As it happens, Ryan was not the hero Emma believed him to be. He lived in an Airbnb, and worked as a crypto consultant. Ryan refused to give Emma a key when she arrived at his house sobbing, bags in hand, and said that her dull boyfriend had canceled her ticket and turned off the utilities. He offered to drive her to the home of her parents. He didn't want a destitute girlfriend with problems. He wanted a casual fling with a taken woman. 2 days later, he abandoned her. The sneer was irrevocably erased from her face. I saw Rachel, the friend whose phone Emma had used to text me, about a month after I returned. I was in a suit at a coffee shop on my way to a meeting. Rachel appeared uncomfortable. She made an attempt to run away, but I got her attention. "Hey Rachel," I exclaimed. "David," she said as she altered her posture. "You look good." "I feel good. How's Emma?" Rachel let out a sigh. Then the fucking thing busted. "Honestly, it's a mess. She's staying on my couch. She had to sell her designer bags to pay off her credit card debt. She keeps talking about how you ruined her. But honestly, David, even the girls are tired of hearing it. She bragged about meeting Ryan. We all told her she was being an idiot. She made a choice," I informed myself. As Rachel said, "She misses you, you know." Her voice trailed off. "She knows she messed up." She said, "If you just talk to her." Maybe I raised my hand. "Rachel, stop. She just wants closure." When I said, "She got closure," I said it was in the cancellation email. I left the coffee shop without turning around. I received a promotion to partner at my firm 6 months later. I began dating Sophia, a woman who doesn't have catch-up dinners with ex-boyfriends, packs her own baggage, and pays her own bills. We had a vacation to Tokyo planned. One evening, when we were making travel arrangements, Sophia asked me, "Are you sure you want to go? I know you just did a big trip a while ago." I grinned. The Maldives sprang to mind. I reflected on the bungalow's quiet. The SMS message that put a stop to a 2-year error crossed my mind. "I'm sure," I said. "This time, I'm actually bringing someone who wants to be there." Every few weeks, Emma still attempts to access my LinkedIn profile, using a private browser. I can see the alerts. They are not blocked by me. I prefer to show her the specifics. The lesson is to believe those who grin when they identify themselves. Give them the type of privacy that lasts a lifetime when they request it. My parents cut me off when I divorced my cheating husband. Now, they beg for forgiveness, because he was arrested for harassing a teen intern. So this is pretty sensitive, and I'm in a bit of a hurry. So please ignore any mistakes I make. This is about my ex-husband, my family, and me, of course. James, my ex-husband, 30M, and I, 29F, got divorced 4 years ago. He and I had met in college, got married right after graduation, and ended things just after 2 years of marriage. But my parents loved him, and immediately assumed that I must have screwed things up. And in fact, just saying that they loved him would be an understatement. They were probably in love with him, and they treated him like their own son. Actually, even better than how they treated my brothers. They loved him and stayed in touch with him even after we got divorced. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. I have a younger sister, 24F, and brother, 23M. And all of them cut me off right after I filed for a divorce, because they wanted me to sit back and work things out with James. But I was not willing to give him a chance. I had my reasons too. Even though I was pregnant, I wanted a divorce because I had found out that he had been cheating on me with one of our mutual friends from college. But he and his parents had said that since I was in my second trimester when I found out, I should probably try to sort things out with him, go for counseling, and fix our marriage. I didn't care about any of that though, and I knew that my parents were not going to be happy. But I still went ahead and filed for a divorce because, for me, my dignity was more important than anything else. Of course, it hurt a lot that all of them cut me off without a second thought, even my siblings. But that couldn't be helped. For the past 4 years after my baby was born, I have had pretty much no contact with James or anybody else from the family, but all of them do get together every now and then. And my friends tell me about it. They are the only support system I have had. And apart from a child support check every month, I don't receive anything. No messages. No calls. Nothing. It used to hurt earlier, but now I'm used to it. I remember for a fact that when I had told my family that I was filing for a divorce from James, and I had even explained to them the reason I was doing so, they had tried to get me to stop. And when I had refused to listen, my parents had told me that they were going to cut me off. They had assumed that James must not have cheated, and that it all must have been my fault somehow, and I must be overreacting because they believed that I was crazy, and they made my siblings cut me off too because they did not want them exposed to a lost cause like me. I'm adding all this so that people know exactly how I was treated. Anyway, all that was in the past, and slowly I learned to live without them. And thankfully, I had my daughter, my job, and my friends. So, I got by just fine. And now, 4 years later, they have finally reached back out to me because they have found out how nasty James actually is. It came as a surprise to me as well, but I'm guessing it must be worse for them because they have kept in touch with him all these years. And recently, he was all over the local news because of a really horrible and nasty incident. I don't want to get into it too much, but basically, he's in trouble because he tried to corner one of the interns who works in his office, and made unwanted advances toward her. Apparently, it had been going on for almost 3 months, and he had been creeping her out. So, she decided to record this particular incident, and then she reported him to the cops directly. I've seen bits and pieces of the footage, and it's really bad, and it disgusts me that I had anything to do with this man in the past. The cherry on top is that this girl, the intern, is literally just 19. It's all really disturbing, and for the past few days, I've been receiving messages of consolation from pretty much everyone I know, which is odd because I don't have anything to do with him, but I do appreciate the concern. The weirdest thing that has happened though is that a couple of days ago, right after the news broke, my parents and my siblings called me up crying, asking me for forgiveness, telling me that they had no idea that this was the kind of person that James was. They started apologizing, told me that they had made a huge mistake, and they wanted me to forgive them, and wanted me to fix things with them, but I just heard them out, told them that there was no chance of this happening ever. And then I hung up. I mentioned this to a cousin, and he told me that apparently, they are being shamed by the entire family. Everyone is calling them out for abandoning me back when I needed them. And earlier, while things have been strained between my family and the rest of my relatives, people have now started cutting them off. I don't know why I feel partially responsible for that. And I feel like maybe I should sort things out with them because I don't know if I will ever get an opportunity like this again. Although on the other hand, I don't think it should have taken something like this for them to reach out to me and apologize because after all, James is not their family, but I am. I'm just very confused. So, Clara for refusing to forgive my family because they cut me off while I was getting divorced from my husband. Update 1. Hey, thank you so much for all the supportive comments and for reassuring me that I'm not the bad guy here. I had almost started to question myself because I was feeling really bad. But I think that has more to do with the state of things right now rather than me wanting to genuinely forgive them for everything that happened. The past few days have been very confusing and mentally draining for me. Because even though I don't have anything to do with James right now, I know for a fact that we were together for a very long time. And no matter how much I want to, I can't change that. I literally have a daughter with him. And I don't know why, but it's just very disturbing to think that if I had never found out about his affair, we would have still been together. In fact, I don't even know how many other women he has cheated on me with. How many women he has made uncomfortable and creeped out. Even right now, Lots of new information is coming out about him, lots of women are posting about him, and it's just been very stressful for me. I have been contacted several times by the local news for my comments, and random people have been reaching out to me either to tell me that I'm strong or to tell me that I'm a horrible person. I don't know why. And I've never been to any of this before. So, naturally, I've been feeling quite stressed out. I think that's why I started rethinking everything that I have done, but I know for a fact that none of this is my fault. I couldn't have possibly known what kind of a person he really was. And if I had, I never would have gotten together with him. But anyway, thank you so much to everybody who commented. It really means a lot to me, especially right now because things have been very tense in my life for the past couple of days. It's just really frustrating because I don't understand how I am answerable for my ex-husband's choices. We haven't been together for the past 4 years. I haven't even spoken to him. And this elf. I don't think it's a necessity that she can't deal without. I think she'll be fine without them since they never cared about her before this. And honestly, all the emotional sentimental drama that they put across in the email really did not make a difference to me. It actually just really irritated me, to be honest. Because every time I think about it, it just reminds me of the fact that something so horrible had to happen for my own family to realize that they should probably be on my side here and not on his. I don't understand. Even back then, when I was getting divorced, they should have supported me, no questions asked. Right now they say we're family, but back then, that was not the case. They shouldn't have felt the need to wait for something so bad to happen to reach out to me. They knew for a fact that he had been cheating on me while I was pregnant with his baby. And how was that not enough for them to take my side on this? All of them wanted me to forgive him and keep pretending everything was fine. It really wasn't. And when I refused to play by their rules, I suddenly became the bad guy. And I was a lost cause, and nobody bothered to check up on me for the next 4 years until now. So, yeah, I think they should stick to siding with James. Let's see where that takes them now. Because truth be told, I have no intention of forgiving them at any point in time. They really hurt me. They broke me irreversibly, and that cannot be taken back. I left James no matter how much I loved him because I knew that what he had done could not be fixed. And now it's the same with my family as well. They can send me all the emails they want, but it's not going to make any difference. I have made up my mind. Update 3. Hey. So it's been 4 weeks since my last update, and after that email, I blocked them. But that did not deter them. They just kept on creating new accounts, sending me emails, apologizing, and it was the same drill over and over again. At one point, I got really frustrated. And I thought that I would just contact them, and I would let them know that this was not going to work. But then that would be playing into their hands, talking to them, and communicating with them. Isn't that exactly what they wanted? So, I decided against it. And this continued for a couple of days, almost 2 weeks. But since last week, I haven't heard from them. I thought that this was over. But now it's my siblings, who are going out of their way to get in touch with me. I can totally understand why they are so desperate to have my forgiveness, because they want to show everyone that I have forgiven them, and everything's fine in our family, because they don't want to be portrayed as villains anymore. I think I had mentioned earlier that the entire family is against them at the moment. Nobody wants to talk to them, and they have pretty much been cut off by everyone, and I don't think that they are enjoying that very much. They had already started being disliked by people when they did not feel the need to be kind to me while I was going through the divorce. But even then, at least the family had kept in touch with them out of a sense of obligation. Now all that is out of the window, and they have been ostracized by everyone because of how they have treated me in the past. I just think that they are just having to face the consequences of their own actions. But I'm guessing they can't handle it. That's really resentful, and has been engaged now. Anyway, my siblings reached out to me. They sent me a text from a new number saying that they were really sorry about everything that had happened. But I had to know that they really had not intended for me to be cut off from the family like this. Apparently, according to what they are claiming in the text, they had fought really hard against our parents. But there was no point because they had been very strict about what they wanted, and they did not think that they could fight against our parents, because back then both of them were financially reliant on them. And my brother actually still is. They claimed that they were very young, so they really did not have a choice but to do as our parents asked. So, if not them, at least I should consider forgiving my siblings, because they really did not have any other options. At least that's what they believe. But I don't agree with that. I honestly think that they could have fought harder for me because, I remember that growing up, Since I was the oldest, I was always on their side. Whether I got along with my parents or not, I always got along well with them, and I thought that they loved me. So, it came as a huge shock to me when, during the divorce, they decided to side with my parents instead of with me. And the fact that they were financially dependent on them doesn't really mean much to me. It might make me sound petty, but I don't really care, because if they really wanted to talk to me, comfort me, they could have contacted me later, when things had died down a little. But for 4 years, they did not bother to reach out to me. And it's not like our parents would have found out. They are not any sort of tech geniuses. My siblings could have easily hidden it from them, and spoken to me. It was a choice. A conscious choice, that they made not to do any of this. And now they want to pretend like they were with me all along, but just couldn't show it to me because of our parents. I call BS on that. I think they just want to be seen as the good guys now. Just like our parents. So, there's no real difference between all of them. Anyway, they did reach out to me recently. And I did not respond. I didn't have anything to say to them. To be very honest, what could I possibly say after 4 years? It's not that I have not imagined this in my head. I have, and always I have had some very nasty things to say to them. But now, since things have materialized, I don't feel like responding to them, or engaging with them at all, because I know there's no point in what I have been through for the past 4 years, and during the divorce. Nobody else knows because nobody else bothered to find out, and especially regarding my siblings. It hurt a lot. Even more than when my parents disowned me. And that apology is coming a little too late for me. And it's too little for me to actually forgive them. It's too little for me to even consider forgiving them and letting everything go. I don't think I can do so. Not right now. Besides, I've already gotten used to life without these people, and I don't want to go back to who I used to be before. I don't think I can realistically speak, because I've been through everything by myself with emotional support only from my friends and nobody else. So now I think it'll be impossible for me to be the same person that they used to know earlier. I'm not that person anymore. And that's why I can't forgive them. Any of them, to be honest, not just my siblings. It hurts, but that's how it is. Update 4. Hi. So it's been a couple of days since my last update when my siblings reached out to me. I did not respond to them. And after that, nobody else texted me or reached out to me for a couple of days. I've been trying to get my life back on track since my mental health for the past couple of weeks, ever since James made the news, has been pretty derailed. I was feeling very uncomfortable all the time, but then, a couple of days back, I made this active decision to not think about these things because what does it even have to do with me? So, with that in mind, I decided to start planning a trip. But of course, my parents reached out to me just as I had made up my mind to go. They sent me another email. And this time I learned some new information. Now everything makes even more sense because apparently, my sister is engaged. She has been with her boyfriend for the past 2 years. They've been going strong, and he recently proposed. They were about to announce it on social media, but then the news about James came out and, well, that went for a toss. In fact, since her fiancé's family knows that my family was in touch with James, they were skeptical about even going ahead with the wedding, but thankfully, my sister's fiancé loved her enough to convince his parents otherwise. So, they are definitely getting married. The problem is that because the entire family has turned against my parents and siblings, they are in a bit of a tough spot because if they don't fix things quickly, nobody might end up showing up for the event. They had even planned on throwing an engagement party next month. But even that is being questioned right now because, like I said, nobody from the family wants to talk to them. And the only way to fix this would be to show people that I have forgiven them. And who knows, maybe people might follow my lead and start talking to them again, because after all, what most people are upset about is how my family had abandoned me when I had needed them the most. They have a fair point. I definitely can solve this problem for them. Or at least I can try to because I know that if I say it, my relatives might consider getting back in touch with my family. They will be cold, but at least there will be some sort of contact. And they won't completely ostracize my family like they have been doing so far. But that's only and only if I say something to indicate that I have decided to forgive my parents and siblings, and I am trying to prepare my relationship with them, which I'm not actually trying to do. So, I don't feel the need to lie about it either, not even for the sake of her wedding or her happiness. I think right now my own mental health is more important to me. In the past few weeks, everything has been pretty bad for me, And I don't think that interacting with my family is going to make things better. It's just going to keep reminding me of everything that I've been trying to forget. So, tough luck. But I don't think I'm going to be helping them with this. Because, after all, it's not my responsibility to make sure that the rest of the family shows up for my sister, and that she doesn't end up looking like a fool. I did not dig this hole for them. I'm not going to get them out of it either. And the fact that they had been reaching out to me for this reason, that she's getting married in a couple of months, and she wants the rest of the family to show up so that no awkward questions are asked by her fiancé's family, is even more insulting. I don't understand why they thought it would be a good idea to share this with me, because it just makes me feel like they were reaching out to me for their own personal gain and nothing else. Everything has to be for their own selfish reasons. Even here, they couldn't just apologize to me because they wanted to, because they were really sorry about everything that had happened. They were reaching out just because there was going to be a wedding in the family, and they wanted it to go well. It's just so insulting for me to even think about it right now. I can't even deal with it. But anyway, I have already mentioned that I have made up my mind about this, and I'm not going back on that. I don't care about the wedding. I don't care about them at all, and I'm going to go ahead on my trip and ignore them for the rest of their days. We are done. I don't even consider them my family anymore. I don't have anything to do with them. And I don't want anything to do with them in the future either. I guess this was pretty much the last straw because, until now, I had been feeling like I was being way too hard on them. But now I don't feel like that anymore. I guess for them, it's more important to be thought of as good people by everyone else in the family, rather than actually being good people. I know I'm all over the place right now, but honestly, I am just really annoyed by everything that they have done so far. As if I haven't been through enough already, they feel the need to constantly keep reaching out to me. Keep bothering me without caring about how I feel. Yes, even though I have made it sufficiently clear that I don't want anything to do with them. It's as selfish as it gets. But then again, that's how they really are. So, I'm not surprised by this. Update 5. Okay, guys. So, I just came back from my trip. I went on a short weekend getaway to the nearby beach with a bunch of my friends, and I had a lot of fun. It was a good distraction from everything that I've been going through, and they really supported me while I was sharing with them whatever I was going through. So, that was really nice. But even that was not completely interruption-free because, the day before we were supposed to come back, my nanny called me up and she told me that my parents had come to visit me. My nanny has been with me ever since my daughter was a child, because obviously, being a single mom, it would be almost impossible for me to survive without her. Not just because I would need to go out, but also because I had work. I would sometimes need to go away on work assignments as well. And I knew that I couldn't always rely on my friends to help me out because they had their jobs and lives as well. So, my nanny has pretty much been a part of my little family. And she knows everything about my problems, including my relationship with my parents. And thankfully, that's why she was wise enough not to open the door when she realized that it was my parents standing outside. She only called me up after they had left, just to inform me, and I was very glad that she had the wherewithal to deal with the situation appropriately. Basically, she did exactly what I would have suggested to her, without even me having to tell her. And we also got lucky, because my daughter stayed quiet when her nanny asked her to, because otherwise, she would have given it away, and my parents would have known that I was avoiding them. Anyway, this was the phone call that I received a day before I was supposed to come back home, and even though everything was fine, no real damage was done because my daughter did not end up meeting her grandparents. I still made up my mind that I was going to move. I don't know how they found out where I stay. But I'm not interested in staying there anymore. I've already started speaking to my realtor, and I'm going to look for a place closer to my friends because right now, I live in a pretty isolated neighborhood. Anyway, I'm just glad that I did not have to interact with them directly because I don't think I would have wanted that. And going away on this trip really brought a lot of clarity to me. I realized that I was letting them have a lot of control over my life inadvertently, even though I had no intention of doing so. But automatically, the only way to deal with this is by just not caring. I don't have to read their emails. I don't have to think about them. I just don't have to do any of that. So that's what I'm going to implement in my life now. Update 6. Hi. So, it's been a few weeks since my last update. And right now I'm posting this from my new house. It's in a better location, closer to my friends, and it's more convenient for my nanny as well as for her commute. It's pretty perfect for me because it's not that far off from my workplace. And in short, I think I got really lucky. I guess it was a great decision to make the move after all. Anyway, enough about me. For the past few weeks, I have been implementing whatever I spoke about in my last update. I've been actively trying not to think about my family. I've been ignoring all their emails. I've not even been reading them. And they keep sending them. But it just doesn't make a difference anymore. I did hear from a couple of my relatives that they received invitations to her engagement party. But I don't think anybody's going to show up. So, that's going to be a bummer for them. But honestly, they did this to themselves. I really wish things could have turned out differently, at least with my siblings, because with them, I actually had a better relationship as compared to my parents. But then, life doesn't always work out the way that we wanted to. And I think I'm fine with that now. At least whatever happened to me, it happened for the best, because I have my daughter, I have my friends, and I have a good job. And I have people who love me and who I can count on. So, I think that's good enough for me.
My parents defended my sister's fake illness, even after she ruined my college and forced me into a garage, but the evidence crushed her in court. My parents told everyone that I had been frightening my crippled sister by walking too loudly. This whole situation began when Melissa returned home from college after being diagnosed with ADHD. Suddenly, everything triggered her. My footsteps were a distraction during her online lectures. I amused her with these silly foam slippers that made me look like a cartoon bear. So, the problem is solved, right? Wrong. She's now complaining to mom that the vibrations from my walking are causing her brain to scramble, despite the slippers. She accompanied this entire talk with articles about ADHD sensory processing. Mom ate it up. She purchased $200 on special carpet runners and forced me to go exclusively on those designated tracks through the house, as if I were a zoo animal following marked trails. I attempted to make it work. I actually did. I'd take little baby steps everywhere, arms out for balance, like if I were on a tightrope. My pals thought I had lost my mind as I tiptoed to the front door. My partner dumped me because he claimed I was acting strangely. But of course, nothing could ever satisfy Melissa. She created a plan, a laminated schedule of when I was allowed to walk about my own house. Not during my focus blocks, she answered, as if it were the simplest thing in the world, except that her focus blocks began at 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. I needed to SMS her before leaving my room. Text my sister for permission to pee. She began documenting everything in this binder, including times I wandered without permission and decibel levels from an app. She'd record me walking and play it back to our parents as proof of my hostility. The breaking point came when she claimed that my midnight trek to buy water caused her to fail an exam. She claimed that the vibrations passed through the flooring and into her desk, making her forget all she had studied. My parents lost it. Dad installed motion sensors. Mom put my bed into the garage. The garage. It's more private out here. You can walk around all you want. Mom got me a space heater, which made sleeping next to gas cans acceptable. Even it wasn't enough for Melissa. She had a full breakdown, rocking back and forth on the floor with tears flowing down her cheeks, and repeating the words, "I can feel her hostile energy through the walls. I can't concentrate knowing she's on the property." My parents convened a family conference and informed me that I needed to stay with relatives until Melissa completed her semester. She's abusing her little sister. They informed everyone that I refused to accommodate Melissa's impairment. It's obvious she's trying to sabotage her education. That same night, they brought me to my aunt's house with 2 garbage bags full of clothes. They wouldn't even let me pack properly. All they wanted was for me to leave. My aunt soundproofed the guest room and gave me special slippers. My uncle gave me a business card for anger management. They kept their children away from me, as if I were a monster. Sigh. 3 days later, I was on my aunt's laptop researching ADHD accommodations when I noticed her email was open. I saw the receipt for Melissa's tuition payment, but something felt off. The number was not what it should have been. My heart began racing. The next morning, I called the college pretending to be Melissa and requesting enrollment verification for insurance. The lady continues, "I'm seeing you haven't been enrolled since spring 2023. You were academically dismissed." My heart has stopped. 18 months. She hadn't attended school for 18 months. I dug deeper. I called a friend whose brother attended state and asked him to see whether Melissa was in any of his classes. He laughed. "Your sister? She got kicked out freshman year for plagiarism. Everyone knows that." I sat there shaking as everything came together at once. My aunt came in and noticed my face. "What's wrong?" I showed her everything: the enrollment office call, my friend's texts, and a timeline of Melissa's symptoms. Everything. My aunt called my parents right away, put it on speaker. "When's the last time you actually saw Melissa's grades?" There was silence. As my mother attempted to log into the parent portal, I could hear her concerned moans. Melissa changed the password 2 years ago, therefore it no longer worked. Dad phoned the bursar's office. $60,000 in tuition payments for nothing. She'd been pocketing everything. Turns out she only wanted me to go so I wouldn't inquire why her buttocks were constantly at home. And when they challenged her, she attempted everything. This is OP's fault. She tried to overstimulate me and drive me insane on purpose. But this time, nobody believed it. My parents spam called me and begged me to return home, but I ignored them. Good riddance. The next day, when I went to check my student portal to register for spring classes, I noticed it. Withdrawal requested by student. I frantically called the registrar. "Yes, you submitted the withdrawal form yesterday at 11:47 p.m. I recognized Melissa. When I hung up the phone, my hands couldn't stop shaking. Melissa had withdrew me from college. My own sister had accessed my account and destroyed my schooling when I was resting at my aunt's place. I called school security right away, my voice shaking as I told how someone had accessed my student account without authorization. The guy on the other end seemed bored. "Ma'am, that's a registrar issue. They're open at 8 a.m. tomorrow. However, this is identity theft. Someone removed me from school. Still need to go through the registrar. Nothing we can do tonight." I wanted to chuck the phone across the room. Instead, I opened my laptop and began capturing pictures of everything. The withdrawal confirmation email, the timestamp 11:47 p.m., and the IP address shown at the bottom of the site. My aunt had encouraged me to capture everything, and now I realized why. The IP address seems familiar. I matched it to an older email from my parents' computer. The same numbers. The withdrawal was submitted from my parents' home while I was 20 miles away at my aunt's house. By 11 p.m. I was still unable to sleep. My thoughts were racing about what else Melissa could have done. I logged into my email settings, which I had never thought to check previously. There it was. A forwarding rule. For the previous 4 months, every email from my college was automatically routed to an address I didn't know. My stomach turned as I looked through my sent folder and discovered emails I'd never written. Responses to teachers stating that I was dropping their classes. Responses. Scholarship opportunities are diminishing. Even a note declining a paid research position I had applied for previous semester. I discovered the original emails in my trash folder, my instructors questioning why I had missed weeks of lectures, the financial aid office informing me about my enrollment status, and an invitation to join the honor society that I had allegedly denied. Each one was forwarded to Melissa before I ever saw it. My alarm did not need to go off the next morning. I'd been awake since 4 a.m., sorting every piece of evidence into folders on my laptop. My aunt took me to university and insisted on attending as my witness. When the registrar's office opened at 8, there was already a line, but I was the first in line. As I explained everything to the woman behind the desk and showed her the screenshots and IP address confirmation, she appeared sympathetic. "I understand this is upsetting," she added, typing something into her computer. "But to reverse a student-initiated withdrawal, we need a police report for identity theft. Plus, your department head has to approve your readmission, and you need to complete any missed coursework." "How long do I have?" She looked at her screen. 72 hours before your spot in the program is permanently released. After that, you'd have to reapply as a new student. A total of 72 hours. 3 days can save you 4 years of education. My aunt drove directly to the police station. The officer receiving my report frowned as I told him about Melissa, the bogus ADH, the stolen tuition money, and now the withdrawal. "Family situations are complicated," he added, not actually looking at me. "This could be seen as a domestic dispute rather than identity theft. Sisters share passwords sometimes." She had never had mine. She must have reset it or hacked it somehow. He gave me a report number but warned that it could take weeks before a detective was assigned. I didn't have any weeks. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was sitting across from my department head. She had always loved me, but her expression was serious when she pulled up my data. "You've missed significant coursework," she told you. "These emails saying you were dropping classes, the missed assignments. I can see you're a victim here, but you're looking at 4 months of work. I can do it. I just need the chance." She gave me a long look. "If you can prove you were prevented from attending, really prove it, and complete all missed assignments within 2 weeks, I'll approve your readmission. 2 weeks for 4 months' work was better than nothing. That evening my aunt and I gathered at her kitchen table and created a chronology, including every episode with Melissa, every text message regarding the foam slippers, and every photo of the carpet runners my mother had installed. My aunt had even retained the receipt for the soundproofing she installed in my room. This is abuse, she explained quietly. Clear, documented abuse. She picked up the phone. I'm calling my friend. She's a lawyer. As my aunt made calls, I recalled something. I'd been texting Elise about everything. She'd witnessed it all in real time. Elise answered the first ring. Oh my God, I've been worried sick. Your parents called my mom and said you'd gone insane and attacked Melissa. Elise, I need your help. Do you still have our text conversations? Every single one. Why? I explained everything. The fake ADH, the stolen money, the withdrawal from school. Elise went silent for a long time. I'm driving down tomorrow, she added. And I'm bringing my laptop. It's strange how effortlessly everyone accepted Melissa's complaints about footsteps making her brain scramble. I'm curious that the parents never questioned such an outrageous assertion or requested actual medical documentation beyond a few written pieces. I screenshotted Melissa's Instagram stories, the ones when she was at parties during her alleged sensory crises. The lawyer arrived the next morning. She examined everything with keen eyes and occasionally asked questions. We have a strong case for the fraud, she told the audience. But I also need documentation of the emotional abuse, the garage, the walking restrictions, everything. Elise arrived that afternoon with a hefty packet of written texts and screenshots. She also had her witness statement prepared and notarized. The Instagram proof was damning. Melissa was at a concert the same night she claimed my footsteps caused her a migraine. Melissa attended a home party 2 hours after stating that she required perfect silence for studying. That evening I decided to conduct a more thorough review of our family's finances. If Melissa stole tuition money, what else did she do? I requested my credit report for the first time in my life. I had never opened 3 credit cards before, $15,000 in debt. All opened within the last year using my social security number. My palms shook when I dialed the police station again. This time, they promptly connected me to a detective. Credit card fraud changes things, the detective explained. This is now a felony case. We'll be arresting your sister tomorrow. My aunt changed her locks that night and added cameras the following morning. I know, Melissa, she admitted. This won't end quietly. She was correct. My parents called the next afternoon, both shouting over the speakerphone. You're destroying your sister's life, Mom wailed. How could you do this to family? She stole $60,000 and opened credit cards in my name. We'll pay for your college, Dad exclaimed. Every penny. Just drop the charges. My aunt grabbed my phone and started recording before I could react. So, you're trying to bribe me? It's not bribery, it's family taking care of family, Mom cried out. Melissa made mistakes, but prison isn't the answer. I hung up and forwarded the recording to the police. My department leader sent me an email that evening. She had studied my proof and would authorize my readmission once the registrar restored the withdrawal. The investigator had rushed the police report. Everything was falling into place, but I still had to deal with the avalanche of missing coursework. Melissa's arrest occurred the next morning. I didn't observe, but she supposedly tried to flee and had to be tackled in the front yard. Within hours, her mugshot appeared online, mascara streaking down her cheeks and her visage twisted with wrath. My phone exploded with messages. Old high school classmates and distant relatives. Some people backed me, while others labeled me callous. They remarked, "She's your sister," as if that explained everything. Then Ryan texted, Melissa's ex-boyfriend from the previous year. I have information you need to see. Can we meet? We met at a coffee shop near school. Ryan appeared exhausted but determined as he pulled out his phone. She used to brag about this stuff, he explained, flashing me text after text. Melissa was giggling about making me walk in foam slippers. Melissa explains how she convinced our parents that I was aggressive. Melissa was giving him false grade reports she had produced in Photoshop. Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried telling your parents about our breakup, but they said I was just bitter. He forwarded everything to me. Additional evidence for the prosecutor. That evening my parents arrived at my aunt's place. Dad hammered on the door, as Mom cried out on the lawn. My aunt would not let them in. Open this door, Dad screamed. She's our daughter. The neighbors phoned the cops. 2 officers arrived and issued my parents a trespassing notice. They had to flee or be arrested. I submitted everything to the registrar the next morning, with 36 hours to spare. The woman who helped me earlier rushed it through the system. "You're officially re-enrolled," she announced, printing my confirmation. "Good luck with the coursework. 4 months of assignments in 2 weeks." I did the math. If I worked 18 hours a day, I might be able to make it. But first, Melissa posted bail. She instantly got online and posted old images of us as kids with long explanations about how her beloved sister had turned against her when she had a disability. She said that I was jealous of the attention she received for her ADHD. She said I was the one who had been abusive, and she had merely been attempting to endure my campaign of terror. People who did not know the truth began sharing her posts. "Disability discrimination is real," they said. "Her sister is a monster." Then something unexpected occurred. Dr. Lauren Harper, a renowned ADHD specialist, contacted me via my university email. "I've seen your sister's posts," she explained. "What she's describing isn't consistent with ADHD. I'm concerned about the stigma this is creating for actual ADHD patients. Would you be willing to let me examine her claims?" Of course, it is pro gratis. I shared the email to the lawyer, who embraced the concept. Meanwhile, Elise had virtually moved into her apartment's living room with me. We created a homework station with 2 laptops, a printer, and enough energy drinks to outfit a convenience shop. She took notes while I was writing papers. She coordinated research as I finished problem sets. 18 hours down, 6 to go, she would say around midnight, forcing me to take breaks. My instructors had been understanding once they discovered the facts. Some even extended deadlines for a few days. However, it was still harsh. My eyes burned and my fingers cramped. Citations and formulas came to mind in my dream. On day 10 of the homework marathon, just as I was about to collapse from tiredness, Elise arrived with reinforcements. 3 peers from my program came to help. They had heard what had happened and wanted to help me. "Nobody should lose their education because of family abuse," one of them stated. We worked shifts. Someone was constantly brewing coffee. Someone was constantly proofreading. When my brain felt like mush, someone was always available to guide me through the next project. By day 11, my head felt as if it had been blended. But we were close. So close. The stack of finished assignments continued to build, but the to-do list gradually shrank. That evening, at 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with an Instagram notice as I was studying my last statistics problem set. Strangely, I hadn't touched social media in weeks. The message came from an account I didn't recognize, Butterfly Girl 2024. My blood ran cold as I read that. "You think you won? I'll destroy you. Drop the charges, or I'll make what happened before look like nothing. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Remember, I know everything about you. Every password you've ever used, every secret you've ever told me. This isn't over." The typing pattern, the risks, and the use of passwords. It was Melissa. She was not meant to contact me at all. That was one of her bail terms. I took screenshots of everything and promptly gave them to the prosecutor. Within an hour, the detective had called. "She violated her bail. We're picking her up now." Melissa returned to jail that night. This time, no bail. 2 days later, I sent in my final work with 24 hours to spare. Elise and I sat in her apartment, staring at the confirmation email from my previous professor. 4 months' labor was completed in 14 days. "You did it," Elise replied. However, I was too weary to rejoice. I only wanted to sleep for a week. The following afternoon, my parents' lawyer contacted me. They'd engaged someone costly who wanted to meet to discuss resolving this family dispute without resorting to legal action. The lawyer accompanied me to the meeting. The expensive lawyer sat across from us in his posh office, attempting to appear sympathetic. "Your parents are prepared to make you whole," he continued, slipping a check over the table. "Full tuition reimbursement, plus damages. In exchange, you will dismiss all allegations and sign this non-disclosure agreement." I looked at the checkbook. $200,000. "No," I replied. He blinked. "Perhaps you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. They want to buy their way out of accountability." 2 hours later, we arrived in court. My parents had sought a restraining order against me, saying that I was bothering them and jeopardizing Melissa's mental health. The judge read their petition with furrowed eyebrows. Then he examined our evidence, garage images, motion sensor receipts, and a recording of them attempting to bribe me. "This restraining order is denied," he stated forcefully. "And frankly, Mr. and Mrs. Coleman, you're lucky you're not facing charges for witness tampering." My parents exited the courtroom without looking at me. The following afternoon, I received calls from all 3 credit card firms. The fraud department had completed their probe. The loan would be discharged, but the damage to my credit score would linger for years. No apartment would rent to me. No auto loan. Nothing. I have a spare room, Elise responded when I told her. Seriously, my roommate just moved out. It's yours if you want it. Dr. Harper called 3 days later with the results of her evaluation. Melissa had been subjected to 6 hours of testing while in custody. Your sister shows no neurological signs of ADHD, she explained gently. However, she does display clear indicators of antisocial personality disorder. The symptoms, she claimed: feeling vibrations through walls, brain scrambling from footsteps. These are medically impossible. I'll testify to this. I thanked her before hanging up, feeling strangely empty. Part of me wished Melissa actually had something wrong, something that explained everything. But no, she was simply mean. The next morning, I sent in my final makeup work with a day to spare. My GPA remained at 3.8. One of my professors even offered me a paid research post for the upcoming semester. You've shown remarkable resilience, he told you. I could use someone as determined as you on my team. Finally, some income, credit cards in her name, Instagram party photographs amid sensory episodes, and parents providing bribes like they're auctioning on eBay. Melissa is playing bogus bingo and completing every square as her parents facilitate the entire circus show. I agreed immediately. 1 week later, the prosecutor phoned. Melissa had been given a plea agreement that included 2 years probation, community service, and full restitution if she admitted to fraud and identity theft. She refused. The prosecution stated, she wants a trial and says she'll prove you drove her to it. When? Next month. You'll need to testify. The news of a trial divided my extended family. My phone didn't stop ringing. You're sending your own sister to prison, my uncle shouted over the phone. She's sick and needs help, not jail, my cousin texted. Others, however, encouraged me. My mother's sister contacted to say she had felt something was wrong for years. My father's brother agreed to testify about the Christmas meal where Melissa laughed about having the entire family wrapped around her finger. I stopped taking calls from anyone other than my aunt and the legal team. Elise helped me prepare for my testimony. We'd sit in her living room as she played prosecutor, asking me the most difficult questions she could think of. Why didn't you call the police when you were moved to the garage? I thought it was my fault. That I really was too loud. Again, Elise replied, without apologizing for existing. We practiced for hours until I was able to convey my experience without shaking. 2 weeks before the trial, my parents attempted again, this time through my aunt. They're offering to pay for everything, my aunt explained, showing me the text. Full college costs, therapy, a new car. They say Melissa is suicidal in jail. I contacted the prosecutor immediately. This is witness tampering, she explained. I'll handle it. My parents received an official warning from the judge. If they make another effort, they will face prosecution. I started treatment the next week. The therapist specialized in family trauma and gaslighting clients. You were systematically abused, she stated after our first session. The walking restrictions were just the visible part. This started much earlier. She wasn't wrong. Melissa, in retrospect, had been in control of the family narrative for years. Every story became twisted. Each dispute became my fault. I had been indoctrinated to distrust my own reality. We'll work on recognizing manipulation, the doctor stated, and setting boundaries that protect you. Melissa's public attorney filed a motion for my medical records a week before the trial, saying that my mental health difficulties rendered me an untrustworthy witness. The judge only approved records from the specified time period. All they discovered was evidence of stress-related sleeplessness from sleeping in a garage. Your medical records actually help our case, the prosecutor informed me. Ryan agreed to testify and brought a box of evidence I had no idea existed. Receipts showing Melissa shopping for designer bags on the same day I was moved to the garage, text messages in which she boasted about getting a free ride, and a video from a party in which she joked about forcing me to walk in foam slippers. I kept everything after we broke up, he informed me. I knew someday people would need to know the truth. The day before the trial, I moved in with Elise. We spent the morning putting together my room, hanging pictures, and making it feel like home. After months of uncertainty, I finally had a safe haven. Melissa's pals drove by slowly that evening, taking photos of the apartment complex. Elise caught it all on her security camera. Let them try something, she remarked. We're ready. My mother sent me one final email that night, a long meandering message about how I was damaging the family legacy, how she had failed as a mother, and how she knew something was wrong with Melissa but wanted to trust her. She never once apologized for making me sleep in a garage. Following the release of court records, the college newspaper published a report about the matter the following morning. My phone lighted up with texts from students. She cheated off me in biology. She stole my laptop and said I lost it. She told everyone I was stalking her when I caught her lying about being in the honor society. Melissa's falsehoods and manipulation have been documented numerous times. The prosecutor included them in her evidence file. Trial day dawned dark and drizzly. I dressed my most professional attire and attempted to keep my hands from shaking. Elise drove me to the courthouse. "You've got this," she stated. "Just tell the truth." The first surprise occurred during jury selection. Melissa stood up and declared that she had fired her public defender. "I'll represent myself," she stated boldly. "No one knows my story better than me." The judge examined her over his glasses. "Miss Coleman, I strongly advise against this. You're facing serious charges." "I understand, Your Honor, but I know the truth better than any lawyer." The judge groaned and granted it. Day 2 of the trial. I took the stand. For 4 hours, I explained everything. The foam slippers, the carpet runners, the walking regimen, and the garage. My voice remained steady as I detailed finding the withdrawal confirmation, locating the forwarded emails, and learning about credit cards. Melissa kept interrupting. "Objection, she's lying." "Miss Coleman, you can't object to testimony. You'll have your chance to cross-examine." Melissa stood up when I mentioned finding out about her expulsion after 18 months of lying. "You've ruined everything," she exclaimed. "Everything was perfect until you had to dig around." The judge threatened to eject her from the courtroom. Then began Melissa's cross-examination. She approached me holding papers in her hands. "Isn't it true that you walked loudly on purpose?" "No." "But you admit you walked?" "Yes, I walked. In my own home." "Aha." She looked at the jury as if she had won something. "She admits it." The jury seemed perplexed. "And isn't it true you were jealous of my academic success? You were expelled for plagiarism." "I wasn't asking about that." She struggled through her inquiries for an hour, unwittingly divulging that she had changed my passwords, forwarded my emails, and had only spent a portion of the tuition money. Elise testified next, displaying our text discussions on a large screen. The jury witnessed everything in real time: my perplexity, desperation, and gradual realization of the truth. Ryan testified about Melissa's brags, displaying receipts and communications. Dr. Harper demonstrated in clinical depth why Melissa's alleged symptoms were physically impossible and unrelated to any recognized neurological disorder. The evidence was overwhelming. On day 3, my parents took the stand. They attempted to minimize everything, but the prosecutor presented receipts. "Is this your credit card statement showing the purchase of motion sensors?" "Yes, but..." "Is this your receipt for the space heater for the garage?" We wanted her to be comfortable in the garage, next to gas cans. Dad finally revealed that he'd never witnessed Melissa experience a sensory episode. Mom revealed that she had never verified Melissa's registration status. Melissa takes the stand on day 4 to defend herself. "It was disastrous. She said that I had been envious since I was a child. She admitted to taking the money, but claimed she earned it because of the trauma I had caused. Despite Dr. Harper's testimony, she persisted on the reality of her ADHD. She unintentionally confessed to credit card fraud while attempting to explain it away. I only use them for necessities. Clothes are necessities. Trips are mental health care." The jury debated for 2 hours. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." Melissa yelled that I was dead to her. My parents ignored me as the bailiffs dragged her away. I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I simply felt empty. Elise drove me home silently. I looked out the window at people going about their daily lives, drinking coffee, strolling their dogs, and conversing about things other than fraud and family betrayal. The emptiness felt heavily on my chest like a stone. "You did the right thing," Elise replied. Finally, when we drove inside the apartment complex, I nodded, but the words seemed meaningless. Right and wrong seemed overly simplistic for what had just occurred. For the next week, I went through the motions, went to school, started my research work, prepared supper with Elise. But everything felt remote, as if I was seeing someone else's life through foggy glass. The sentencing hearing occurred on a Thursday morning. I dressed the same business attire, but this time my hands did not shake. Melissa stood in an orange jumpsuit, her hair flat on her skull, and no makeup to cover the black circles under her eyes. The judge considered the counts of fraud, identity theft, credit card fraud, and witness intimidation. Each count included prospective years. "Miss Coleman," he said, "Melissa, do you have anything to say before sentencing?" She stood up straight. "My sister destroyed our family out of jealousy. I needed that money for my medical treatment. She refused to accommodate my disability, and now she's sending me to prison for being sick." The judge's face did not change. "Miss Coleman, multiple experts have testified that you have no disability requiring accommodation. You stole over $75,000, including credit fraud. You attempted to destroy your sister's education and future." He sentenced her to 3 years in state jail, with forced reparation of all stolen funds and damages. "I hope you use this time to reflect on your choices," he told you. Melissa turned to gaze at me one final time. "You destroyed this family," she stated simply. "I hope you're happy." The bailiffs escorted her away. My parents had arrived this time and sat in the back row. Mom was crying silently. Dad's jaw was so tightened that I could see the muscles moving. They went without saying anything. The following morning, I went to the phone store with Elise. The clerk transferred my contacts as I watched my old phone number disappear from the screen. 10 years had passed, but it felt necessary, like closing a door. Wow. Melissa's inadvertent confessions while defending herself are mind-blowing. How did she believe that declaring clothes are necessities and trips are mental health care would help her case? I blocked my parents on everything, including email, social media, and LinkedIn. My aunt assisted me in filing the reparation papers, stressing that it would take years to receive any actual money. "Prison wages are about $1 an hour," she explained. "But at least it is something." 2 weeks later, my aunt sent me a letter from my parents. They were selling their home to pay for Melissa's appeal counsel and moving to Florida to start again. The letter condemned me for choosing revenge over family and promised to pray for my soul. I tossed it in the garbage without responding. My research job kept me busy. We were investigating memory formation in trauma victims. Ironically, given my situation, the task felt significant. Every data item, every analysis, contributes to something that can help someone else. "You're one of my strongest research assistants," my professor said to me one afternoon. "Your attention to detail is exceptional." I wanted to tell him that was the result of years of documenting Melissa's lies, but instead I simply said, "Thank you." The spring semester passed by in a whirlwind of coursework, research, and therapy appointments. The therapist assisted me in overcoming the shame that persisted during peaceful moments. "Guilt is common among abuse victims," she explained. "You were trained to prioritize your sister's needs over your own safety. It takes time to unlearn that." Sometimes I'd wake up believing I heard footsteps above me, only to remember that I now lived on the top level. My body was still primed for hypervigilance. Melissa's appeal was refused 2 months after she received her sentence. The evidence was too overwhelming. She was moved 3 hours away to a state women's detention prison. Some of her old pals apologized for believing her lies about me. "We should have known," one wrote. "She lied about everything else too." I've forgiven some of them but maintained my distance. Trust was becoming increasingly difficult to gain. My therapist assisted me in preparing a victim impact statement for the restitution court. We worked on it for 3 sessions, meticulously recording the financial and emotional consequences, the garage, the lost semester, credit destruction, and treatment bills. Melissa was ordered by the judge to pay a total of $100,000, which included the stolen tuition, credit card debt, and emotional distress damages. At prison rates, it would take decades. "It's not about the money," the therapist told me. "It's about accountability." The following week, a TV producer contacted and expressed interest in making a documentary about sibling fraud and family treachery. They promised a significant sum of money for my cooperation. "Your story could help other victims," the woman remarked. "No," I informed her. "I need to move forward, not backward." She called 3 more times before giving up. May arrived, bringing final examinations and graduation preparations. Elise assisted me in selecting a cap and gown, and insisted on shooting photos, despite the fact that I felt strange celebrating. "You earned this," she remarked. "Despite everything. You finished." My aunt and uncle attended graduation, as did Elise and Ryan. We had become friends during the trial. "Trauma bonding," the therapist labeled it. They cheered as I came across the platform, my honors cord waving with every step. The seats where my parents should have been remained empty. I tried to avoid looking at them. The next morning, I checked my inbox and found an acceptance letter from a graduate program across the nation. Full scholarship, research assistantship, and a completely new start in which no one knew my story. Take it. Elise responded immediately. You need this. I agreed that afternoon. 6 weeks later, my aunt called to share some news. My grandmother, my father's mother, had died. The funeral is on Thursday, my aunt explained cautiously. Your parents told everyone you're not welcome. They're saying you've joined a cult. A cult? I laughed, but it turned bitter. That is their narrative, easier than explaining the truth. Melissa received supervised release to attend the funeral. My cousin emailed me photos, her in a black frock with an ankle monitor, crying loudly at the burial while my parents hugged her. The extended family gathered around them as if nothing had occurred. I stayed at home and looked over old photos of Grandma instead. She had always been polite to me, but distant. Now I was wondering what stories my parents had told her about me over the years. The first compensation payout arrived a week later. $5,000 was a minuscule portion of what was owed, but it was something. I used some for therapy, some for moving expenses, and the rest in savings. August came quickly. I packed up all I owned into a little trailer. Elise helped me load boxes while we both tried not to cry. You'll pay a visit, she said. And I'll come see you, of course. But we both knew it would be different. The drive across the country took 4 days. I stopped at random motels, ate at truck stops, and observed the countryside transform from familiar to unfamiliar. With each mile, the weight on my chest gradually lifted. My new graduate school roommate was frequently talking about her plant biology study. The second week she commented on how gently I walked. It's like you're not even there sometimes, she remarked, laughing. I forced myself to walk normally thereafter. Each footstep represents a modest act of defiance against previous tendencies. It took several months to feel normal again. The program was hard, but in a positive way. Nobody knew about Melissa, the trial, or the garage. I was just another graduate student studying neuroscience, working late in the lab and consuming too much coffee. 3 months into the semester, I received a letter forwarded from my aunt's address. Melissa's handwriting on the envelope caused my stomach to clench. Inside are 3 pages of Melissa's neat handwriting. She forgives me for betraying her. She recognized that others had manipulated me into testifying. She hoped that one day I would realize what I had done and come to see her so she could forgive me in person. She made no apologies or acknowledgments of her actions. During a late-night experiment, I burned it in the lab's Bunsen burner, seeing the pages curl and blacken until there was just ash left. December provided another surprise. My parents sent me a Christmas card with a check for $1,000. We'll always love you despite everything, they wrote. Perhaps someday you'll realize family is more important than being right. I stared at the check for a long time. $1,000 would assist with expenditures, but accepting it felt like agreeing with their version of events. Instead, I donated it to a domestic abuse shelter and simply sent them the receipt. The spring semester began with me teaching undergraduate biology labs. Standing in front of 18-year-olds and describing mitosis and cell division was weird. Some were older than Melissa had been when she began telling lies. One girl stayed after class in March. She fidgeted with her notebook, avoiding eye contact. My sister says I'm making her sick, she explained quietly. She says my breathing is too loud when I study. My parents want me to move to the basement. My chest was tightening. I recognized the expression in her eyes, bewilderment mingled with self-doubt. That's not normal, I explained gently. Breathing doesn't make people sick. She burst into tears. But she has anxiety. The doctor said I should be supportive. I informed her about gaslighting, emotional abuse, and documenting everything. I told her about the on-campus counseling center. Someone believes me, she muttered. I believe you. She left with her shoulders slightly straighter. I hoped she would be fine. That afternoon, I returned to my office with heavy, purposeful steps. My boots boomed through the hall. A coworker looked up, startled by the noise. Sorry, he said. Didn't hear you coming. You're usually so quiet. Not anymore, I said. I walked loudly after that. Allow my footsteps to declare my presence. Let them resound and reverberate. Each stride was an assertion of my existence, that I had the right to occupy space and make noise in my own life. Thanks for listening along while I wondered about things with you. It's been quite the journey together. See you around, friends. If you made it to the end, drop a comment. I love reading all your comments. My wife mocked me as another child instead of a husband, in front of her CEO. 6 months later, my designs replaced her entire career. I'm a 34-year-old male who has been working in IT support for the past 8 years. It's nothing extraordinary, but it covers the expenses. I met my wife Clara, a 32-year-old woman in college, when I was on track for something better. According to my lecturers, I aspired to be an architect and possessed a natural design ability. But life happens, as you know. Clara was an ambitious marketing major who was always talking about moving up the corporate ladder. When we graduated, she got an entry-level work at BlackRock's K-Market, a fashionable company with exposed brick walls and kombucha on tap, while I took a temporary IT job to support us while she built her career. Somehow, temporary became 8 years of my life. I'm not complaining, at least not back then. I assumed we were a team. She'd always assure me, once I make senior account manager, we can focus on your career goals. But that promotion came and went, as did the next, and my dreams were put back until maybe next year. I was making decent money, but it was little compared to what she was earning once she started rising up, and she never forgot it. Our apartment was filled with everything she selected. My gaming PC was banished to a small part of the spare bedroom she referred to as her home office, despite the fact that she rarely utilized it. When I attempted to hang some of my old college architectural sketches, she said they didn't fit our aesthetic and replaced them with generic abstract art from an exorbitant downtown store. So I'm standing there, fixing my tie for the 6th time in our bathroom mirror, preparing for Clara's annual office party. This wasn't just any party, it was the first since her promotion to Director of Client Relations. My stomach was knotted. These corporate experiences always made me feel like an imposter. "Oliver, are you seriously still getting ready?" she asked from the bedroom, with that slight edge in her voice that made me feel about 2 inches taller. "We can't be late. Richard Billings will be there, he's the CEO. Remember, I've told you like 1,000 times." "Almost done," I said, smoothing down my new suit, which I had spent $800 on just so she wouldn't give me that look she usually gave me when I wore my old one, "My husband is such a project" look she'd send to her friends when she thought I didn't notice. She kept guiding me like I was a child during the drive. "Remember to mention your project management certifications if anyone asks what you do. And please, try to be more assertive than last time. You just stood in the corner like a statue." Each suggestion felt like a tiny paper cut. Small but terrible. "And don't bring up that Star Wars crap you're always talking about. Nobody cares about your theories on whatever those wizard people are called." "Jedi," I amended instantly, but I quickly regretted it when I saw her roll her eyes. "Whatever, just try to seem interested in marketing for once." I just nodded and promised to make her proud as always, but something inside was already changing. I was so tired of being a supporting character in the Clara show. The event was held at a luxury downtown hotel, complete with glass and modern art, and the attendees appeared to have never eaten fast food before. I recognized a few individuals from past gatherings, but I largely felt like an outsider, as if I were wearing a costume for a play I had never auditioned for. Clara instantly noticed her colleagues and drew me along, her hand clutching my elbow so tightly that I thought it could bruise. "There's Kevin's group from marketing," she said quietly. "Let me do most of the talking. Just smile and nod." Things went well at first. I smiled when I was meant to, laughed at inside jokes that I didn't get, and kept her sparkling water glass full. Clara's claws dug deeper into my arm as her employer Thomas approached, accompanied by Richard Billings, CEO. "Your quarterly numbers were exceptional," Richard told Clara. "We need more of that killer instinct in the company. The way you handled the Miller account, brilliant." She was beaming as if someone had just given her $1 million. "Thank you, sir. I believe women need to push boundaries in this industry. We can't let the old boys club hold us back." She tossed in the feminist angle she usually used with her supervisors, even if at home she'd have me kill the spiders and take out the trash since those were man jobs. The talk then switched to a rock climbing excursion that the corporation had organized. Clara was one of several CEOs who took part. "Your wife was fearless on that cliff face," I heard Thomas say. "What about you? Do you share her adventurous spirit?" Clara gave out a phony laugh, as she often did when she wanted to impress someone. "Oliver? Oh God, he gets vertigo standing on a stepladder. I'm definitely the risk taker in our marriage. He's more of a support person." A few giggles echoed throughout the group, but I felt my face burn with humiliation. The CEO smiled cordially. "Nothing wrong with being cautious. Different strengths and all that." But Clara was not done. "It's beyond caution," she said, unaware to how uncomfortable I felt. Remember when we had that mouse in the apartment last month? She pantomimed, shivering, and everyone laughed even harder. He stood on the kitchen table screaming until I got home to deal with it. I took a large swallow of my sparkling water, wishing I could simply disappear. That is not even how it happened. I was frightened by the mouse and jumped, but her interpretation made me sound miserable. And when we go camping, she said, he won't sleep without an air mattress and insists on staying at sites with full bathroom facilities. Not exactly the rugged outdoorsman. She looked around at her coworkers. I swear sometimes it's like having another child instead of a husband. But he's so good with computers. She stroked my arm condescendingly. Richard's expression changed. His gaze went to me with what appeared to be sympathy. Thomas cleared his throat, clearly knowing that the conversation had gone too far. Actually, Thomas replied, I was talking with Oliver earlier about his architectural hobby. Those 3D designs he showed me were impressive. I had not disclosed my architectural hobby. I had no idea Thomas knew my name until that moment. But I realized he was attempting to save me, and I felt a strange connection to this guy I barely knew. Clara appeared confused. Architecture. He doesn't. Perhaps you could send me some of those renderings, Thomas said calmly, cutting her off. I've been thinking about redesigning my lake house. The subject shifted to vacation cottages, but the harm was done. I stood there, as if my soul had escaped my body. I was just an empty suit, nodding and smiling, but inside I was screaming. I'd spent the last 8 years of my life supporting this lady, and she couldn't even show me basic courtesy in front of her co-workers. For what? So she might appear more spectacular in comparison. The toughest part was that I knew she'd expect me to laugh about it afterwards. Oh, don't be too sensitive. I was just playing around. I excused myself to seek some fresh air, heading out to this large balcony where the cool night breeze did nothing to alleviate the burning embarrassment within me. I stood there, staring at the city lights below, and suddenly everything became obvious. The lady I married had just used me as a punchline to promote her personal image at work, and this wasn't the first time. Years of little comments and subtle put-downs had suddenly crystallized into this terrible pattern that I'd ignored. I wasn't just the target of tonight's jokes, I was also the designated loser in the story she had created about our relationship. Gets old, doesn't it? I turned to see Thomas standing in the doorway, holding 2 bottles of sparkling water. He extended one to me. Thought you might need this? I agreed with a nod, grateful for both the alcohol and his lack of sympathy. Thank you, and thanks for the imaginary architectural hobby. He leaned against the railing beside me. My ex-wife did the same thing at every company event, made me the punchline to all her stories. Dave can't cook to save his life. Dave got lost driving to his mother's house. Dave couldn't figure out how to use the washing machine. He sipped his water. After our divorce, I found out she'd been seeing her personal trainer for 6 months. Best thing that ever happened to me. We stood silently for a moment. Listen, he replied at last. I don't know you well, but I recognize self-respect walking out of a room. That takes more courage than impressing a bunch of corporate drones who will forget about this party by Monday morning. I didn't know how to answer, so I simply nodded. For what it's worth, he went on. I've been in this business 20 years. The people who last aren't the ones who build themselves up by tearing others down. That strategy always backfires eventually. The water was swirling. And between us, Clara's promotion isn't as solid as she thinks. Richard's been asking questions about that Miller account. I stared at him with amazement. What do you mean? Thomas shakes his head. Just that the numbers don't quite add up, nothing I can discuss in detail. He drifted off and changed the subject. So, did you really study architecture? I nodded. Yeah, back in college. Had to drop out my senior year when my dad got sick. Medical bills wiped out the college fund. I was going to go back, but then Clara's career took off, and it just never seemed like the right time. Thomas nodded attentively. Funny how we put our dreams on hold, thinking it's temporary, and then wake up one day to realize years have passed. Yeah, I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. Funny. The balcony door opened, and Clara appeared. She was visibly annoyed, but she tried to cover it with a phony smile. There you are. Everyone's wondering where you went. Her gaze shifted between me and Thomas, narrowing slightly. Is everything okay? Just getting some fresh air and having a fascinating conversation, Thomas said before I could respond. Oliver was telling me about his background in architectural design. Really innovative perspectives. Another imaginary interest, but this one seemed different. Less like a rescue, more like potential. "We should get back inside," she remarked to me, her grin barely reaching her eyes. "Richard's wife was asking about you." "Actually," I continued, finally finding my voice, "I think I'm going to head home." Her smile disappeared. "What? You can't leave now. We've only been here 2 hours." "I'm not feeling well." It wasn't completely false, my stomach had been churning since her performance inside. "Don't be ridiculous," she muttered, moving closer and lowering her voice. "This is important for my career, you can manage a few more hours. Stop being so sensitive." Thomas cleared his throat. "Perhaps I should give you two a moment," he replied, but did not move to leave. "No need," I said, putting down my water bottle. "I ordered an Uber, and it should arrive any minute." I hadn't, but I would as soon as I went downstairs. "This is so typical," Clara whispered, her voice sharp enough to break glass. "The one time I need you to be supportive, you're running away because your feelings got hurt. I swear, men are so fragile sometimes." Something inside of me moved, and a quiet assurance replaced the confusion and hurt. I straightened my shoulders and gazed directly at Clara. "I've supported you through 3 promotions, 2 career changes, and countless late nights at the office. I've attended every function, remembered every colleague's name, and never once complained about being left alone at holidays when you had to work. I put my own dreams on hold for 8 years while you built your career." I took a breath. "But tonight you didn't ask for my support. You used me as a prop to make yourself look better." Her cheeks reddened. "You're overreacting. It was just harmless joking around." "Was it?" I inquired quietly. "Because from where I'm standing, it felt like you were telling everyone that your biggest accomplishment was succeeding, despite being married to such a pathetic loser." Her gaze faltered and fell to the floor, and I saw something I hadn't expected: uncertainty disguised as confidence, fear veiled as ambition. "I'm going home," I said gently this time. "We can talk tomorrow." As I turned to leave, Thomas extended a hand. "Good meeting you properly, Oliver. Hope you feel better soon." I shook his hand, shocked by the firm grip and the business card he effortlessly presented to me. "Call me if you'd like to grab coffee sometime," he said. "I mean it about those designs." When I returned, the apartment was quiet. I removed my suit, the expensive costume I'd worn to blend in with her world, and stood in the shower until the hot water ran cold, allowing it to wash away the humiliation of the evening. Sleep did not come easily. I lay there, remembering years of subtle slights. The way she'd stop me while I was talking about something I was interested in, the way she rolled her eyes when I suggested vacation plans, and the constant minor adjustments she wanted to make to my look, speech, and hobbies. For example, when I spent months building a custom gaming PC and finally got it running perfectly, she said, "That's nice, honey. Maybe now you can focus on something productive." Similarly, when I excitedly showed her a sketch I'd drawn of our dream house, she said, "It's cute that you still think about that stuff." Morning brought insight rather than reconciliation. Clara hadn't arrived home. I received a text message at 6 a.m., told me she'd stayed at Jen's house because she didn't want to continue the debate while emotional. Translation: she was avoiding the repercussions of her behavior. I called in ill to work, which I rarely did, and spent the day in a strange limbo between fury and possibility. I took out my old architectural sketches from college, which Clara had deemed not matching our aesthetic, and set them out on the dining table. They weren't too bad, especially the urban regeneration project, which had earned me departmental acclaim. By afternoon, I was staring at the business card Thomas had given me. After an hour of deliberation, I eventually texted, "This is Oliver from last night. I'll take you up on that coffee offer, if it still stands." His response was quick. "Good to hear from you." 3 p.m. at Steel Bean downtown. The coffee shop was expensive, but not pretentious. Thomas was already sitting in a corner booth when I arrived, dressed casually in trousers and a button-down. "Thanks for meeting me," I murmured, taking the seat across from him. "Though I should probably confess, I've never shown you any architectural designs." He laughed. "I figured as much. But I wasn't entirely making it up. Clara mentioned once that you studied architecture in college. Said it was cute that you thought you could make it in that field." That stung. I never said it was cute when she failed her first 2 marketing jobs. "Yeah, well, it was more than cute to me," I answered, taking out my phone and showing him photographs of my old college projects before leaving the flat. I was on track for internships at some decent firms before life happened. Thomas raised his eyebrows as he browsed through the photographs. These are actually good. Really good. The spatial awareness, the integration with the surrounding environment. You had a genuine talent. The talk moved with unexpected ease. He wasn't simply being courteous or feeling sorry for me, he actually cared about who I was. As we talked, I found myself disclosing things I'd kept hidden. My abandoned passion for architectural design, the small company plan I'd shelved when Clara's career took precedence, and my growing sense of having lost myself in the shadow of her success. So all this time you've just been putting your dreams aside while supporting hers? Thomas was curious. I guess I thought that's what marriage was, I said. Compromise. Sacrifice. I figured my turn would come eventually. Compromise should go both ways, Thomas explained. When was the last time she sacrificed something for your dreams? I couldn't respond because the truth was that she never had. Why did you really ask me here? I finally said, after a second coffee. Corporate loyalty would suggest you should be taking her side. He pondered about this, tapping his fingers on the table. Corporate loyalty is overrated, human decency isn't. What I saw last night wasn't someone building up a team, it was someone stepping on another person to appear taller. He raised his eyebrows. Plus, I recognized something in you that reminded me of myself 15 years ago. Sometimes people need a nudge to remember who they are. Before we separated, he made an unexpected proposal. My team's working on a new downtown development project, mixed-use building with residential and commercial space. Given your background in architecture, would you be interested in reviewing some of the preliminary designs? Fresh eyes can spot things we've missed, and it might be therapeutic. I was stunned. I don't have any professional qualifications, my design experience is theoretical at best. Sometimes theoretical is exactly what we need. No pressure, just take a look and give me your honest thoughts. He slid a thumb drive across the table. Use a new email address to send feedback. This is under the radar. I don't need Clara knowing I'm consulting with her husband. That evening, after Clara returned with a well-scripted apology that included terms like work stress and don't mean to embarrass you, but never recognized what she'd done, I sat down at my long-neglected desk and plugged in the drive. The ideas were ambitious, combining modern and historical features to revive a neglected part of downtown. I lost myself for hours studying representations, taking notes, and sketching possibilities. For the first time in years, I felt my mind totally engaged, with neurons sparking with previously latent creative force. Clara entered our home office, hesitating uncertainly at the threshold, and I scarcely noticed. "What are you working on so intently?" she inquired, her tone perfectly neutral. I did not glance up. "Just a project." She moved closer, attempting to see the screen. "Work project? Since when does IT support need architectural renderings?" I closed the laptop, sensing a strange new wall between us. "It's personal." Her face showed confusion, then anxiety. "Personal? What does that mean?" Her gaze tightened. "Are you talking to someone else?" The connotation was obvious. In her opinion, the only personal project I could pursue would be an affair. She couldn't believe I had autonomous interests or aspirations. "I'm looking into some possibilities," I said vaguely, loving the fact that for once, I was the one holding the information she sought. She hovered for another minute, obviously expecting me to elaborate, but I remained silent. Finally she retreated, and I understood something had fundamentally changed. The apartment seemed different. Not because she had returned, but because I had changed since leaving for the party 2 nights ago. I reopened my laptop and started writing an email to Thomas, signing it with my name followed by architectural consultant. The title was aspirational rather than factual, but for the first time in years, the difference between the two did not appear insurmountable. 2 weeks passed in an unusual new domestic rhythm. Clara walked on eggshells around me, overcompensating with forced cheerfulness and an unexpected interest in my day. I remained cordial but distant, spending my evenings concentrating on the development project rather than watching meaningless television with her. The email I wrote to Thomas sparked a flurry of responses, with the design team expressing real interest in my proposals. What started as a courtesy evaluation turned into serious conversation, with some of my suggestions incorporated into the amended plans. He texted me one morning that they were executing your courtyard plan. The team wishes to meet the mystery consultant. 1 p.m. tomorrow. I stared at the message, equally excited and afraid. This wasn't just a soothing distraction, it was becoming real. I'm not qualified for an actual meeting, I responded. His response was immediate. Neither were half the successful people I know when they began. 1 p.m., at the office, business casual. I will meet you in the lobby. That evening, I casually remarked to Clara that I had lunch plans downtown the next day. Oh? With whom? She attempted to seem intrigued, but I detected a keen edge of distrust. A potential client, I responded, not quite lying but without mentioning that her employer was my contact. A client for what? She inquired, putting down her fork. I looked up from my plate. I'm exploring some consulting opportunities in architectural design. Her fork paused halfway into her mouth. Since when are you interested in architecture and what kind of consulting? You don't have certifications. I've always been interested in architecture, I explained quietly. We talked about it when we first met. I showed you my sketches. That was a hobby, she remarked. You can't just suddenly decide to call yourself a consultant. Actually, you can, I quipped, especially when people value your input. I shut my laptop and stood up. I need to prepare for tomorrow. As I walked away, I could feel her staring at my back, attempting to understand this new version of her husband, one with interests and objectives other than supporting her profession. The next morning, I dressed in my best business casual outfit, not the suit she'd chosen for me, but clothes I felt good in. As I was about to go, Clara arrived in the doorway. Who exactly are you meeting with? She inquired, no longer concealing her suspicion. A development team is interested in my design perspective, I said, reaching for my portfolio, which I had spent the entire night putting together, complete with old college work and new ideas for the downtown project. This doesn't make any sense, she insisted. You work in IT. You've always worked in IT. I worked in IT to support us while you built your career, I corrected her. But that was never my passion. You knew that. As I walked towards the door, she yelled after me. Is this about the party? Are you trying to punish me? I halted with my hand on the doorknob. Not everything is about you, Clara. This is about me reclaiming something I lost. The corporate headquarters was intimidating, 60 stories of dazzling glass and steel. I straightened my blazer in the foyer, doubting my sanity for consenting to this appointment. What was I thinking when I pretended to be a professional in a world where I didn't fit in? Thomas arrived on time, greeting me with a solid handshake. Ready to impress some people? The meeting room included 5 persons, all dressed in that modest, expensive way that denoted serious achievement. My hands were clammy as I was introduced simply as the consultant who solved our courtyard challenge. Walk us through your thinking, a gray-haired woman asked, gesturing at the graphics shown on the wall. I took a big breath and began detailing the flaws I'd identified with the original design, such as shadowing at certain times of day, the wind tunnel effect caused by the building orientation, and the missed potential for green space that would have increased property prices and tenant happiness. As I spoke, my voice became more steady. I received queries, drew alternatives on the digital whiteboard, and got into a heated debate about the benefits of different materials. For 90 minutes, I forgot to feel intimidated. I forgot I was not formally qualified. I simply lost myself in the sheer pleasure of creative problem solving. After the meeting, the gray-haired woman approached me immediately, revealing herself to be the firm's senior partner. Your perspective is refreshing, she replied. Most consultants tell us what we want to hear, but you told us what we needed to know. She offered me her card. We have another project breaking ground in 3 months. Would you be interested in a more formal arrangement? I felt dizzy with possibilities. I would need to think about it, of course. But don't think too long, she said with a knowing smile. Talent doesn't need credentials to be valuable. Clara arrived home from work earlier than normal that evening, and I was going over the meeting notes. Something about her behavior appeared off, a peculiar combination of rage and anxiety that aroused instant concerns. How was your meeting? She said, her tone tense. Productive, I answered cautiously. Why? Imagine my surprise, she began, throwing her bag to the counter with a thud. When I was called into Richard's office today to explain why my husband is suddenly consulting on the downtown project with my supervisor. And there it was, the decisive moment. I didn't realize I needed your permission to pursue professional opportunities, I added softly. Don't play dumb, Oliver. You deliberately kept this from me. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? Like I can't keep my own husband in line. Keep me in line. The words struck me like a blow. Is that how you see our marriage? That I'm someone you need to keep in line? You know what I mean? She backed away. It just looks weird. People are talking about, what? That your husband might have talent and value outside of being your supportive spouse? That's not fair, she complained. I've always supported your interests. My interests, I reiterated. Not my career, not my ambitions. My cute little hobbies that you could pat me on the head for. She threw up her hands. What do you want from me? I said I was sorry about the party. I had too much sparkling wine. I was trying to impress Richard. I went too far. What more do you want? I want you to understand that this isn't about the party, I told you. The party just showed me clearly what I'd been ignoring. We built a relationship where your dreams were the priority, and mine were the sacrifice. I accepted that arrangement for so long that I almost forgot I had dreams of my own. She reached for my hand, but I took a step back, needing physical space to retain emotional clarity. What exactly are you doing with this project? She inquired, her voice lowering. Consulting on architectural elements of a downtown development, and they've asked me to consider a formal arrangement for future projects. Her eyes expanded. You're not qualified, you never finished your degree. Apparently talent and insight matter more than credentials to some people. Her tone changed, becoming accusing once more. And Thomas arranged all this? Why would he do that? I shrugged. Maybe he recognized something in me. Maybe he just wanted to help. Or maybe he saw how I was treated and decided I deserved better. She flinched, like if I had hit her. So this is about punishing me. Embarrassing me professionally as revenge. Not everything is about you, I explained quietly. This is about me rebuilding something I lost. It has nothing to do with revenge. Her rage reappeared. You've been lying to me for weeks while meeting with my employer. How am I supposed to interpret this? I did not lie. I simply did not provide information that you had not requested. When was the last time you asked about my day, interests and goals? Not what you needed from me or how I might help you, only who I am and what I desire. She opened her lips to answer, but closed it again, as awareness dawned in her eyes. The following few days were stressful. Clara oscillated between faux supportiveness and passive-aggressive comments about my unexpected job move, but something greater was forming. I could feel it in the way she furiously texted over dinner or took whispered phone conversations in the restroom. One morning, approximately a week after my meeting with the design team, I received an urgent text from Thomas. We need to chat immediately, not over the phone. We met at a quiet cafe far from Clara's workplace, and Thomas appeared depressed. Clara's trying to sabotage you, he blurted out. She's filed a formal complaint with HR, claiming I've engaged in inappropriate professional relationships by hiring her spouse without disclosure. My stomach plummeted. Can she do that? Technically, there is no rule against hiring employees' spouses for consultancy work. But she's framing it as a conflict of interest, implying that we only hired you to win favor with her over the Miller account. That's ridiculous, I responded, feeling betrayed yet again. She knows that's not true. Of course that's not true. But she is desperate. The Miller account numbers. The ones we've been questioning, Clara's been manipulating the data to make her results look better. There's something else you should know. He hesitated. Nothing illegal, but clearly against company policy. Richard had previously planned to audit her work next month, and now she is attempting to defame you before that happens. I took note. Make it look like I'm the one with professional ethics issues. Thomas nodded grimly. Exactly. What can I do? I asked. We need proof that your hiring was solely based on merit. Your original email criticizing our design, did you send it from a personal account that Clara does not have access to? I replied. I created a new account like you suggested. Good. And your design suggestions were made before you knew about the Miller account audit? I didn't even know about the Miller account issues until today, I told you. Thomas was relieved. That helps. But there's another issue. Clara claims you've been exploiting insider information she brought home to gain an advantage on the project. I felt terrible. She's the one who never discusses work at home, except to brag. I had no idea about this project until you showed me. I believe you. But we have to prove it. I thought for a moment. She keeps a personal journal. Every night she writes down all of her professional accomplishments and strategies. If she has been changing data, it might be in there. Thomas scowled. I can't ask you to invade your wife's privacy. It's my apartment too, I insisted. And if she's trying to destroy my one chance at rebuilding my career just to protect her lies, I think I have a right to defend myself. That night, while Clara was at her emergency yoga session, which I now thought was a strategy meeting with her allies at work, I discovered her journal concealed in her underwear drawer. When I opened it, I felt a tinge of guilt, but that quickly faded as I began to read. It was all there. Her deliberate manipulation of the Miller account data, her strategy to keep Oliver focused on my career by disparaging his architectural hobby, and most damning of all, entries from the previous week plotting to discredit Thomas before he could expose her lies. She wrote, "Thomas thinks he's so clever using Oliver against me, but I'll make sure they both regret it." I took images of the pertinent pages, my hands shaking with rage and betrayal. This wasn't just about the party. It was about years of purposefully suppressing my dreams in order to retain me as her loyal sidekick. The next morning, I texted Thomas the images with a simple message. "Do what you need to do." 2 days later, Clara returned home in tears, her face blotchy from fury and embarrassment. "You bastard!" she screamed as soon as she saw me. "You looked through my private notebook. You handed Thomas my personal writings. Do you have any idea what you did?" I stayed calm, saying, "I know exactly what I did. I fought myself against your attempts to undermine my career, just as you have done for years." "They have suspended me," she screamed, "pending a thorough review of the Miller account. My reputation is ruined." "What is your reputation?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the reputation you earned by lying about your accomplishments and treading on others? What about that reputation?" She dropped onto the sofa, abruptly shifting tactics, and tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared up at me with those deceptive eyes I used to find appealing. "Oliver, please," she cried. "You must assist me. Tell them you misunderstood. Tell them I never intended to harm your career. You realize how essential this work is to me." "To us?" I corrected. "It was always essential to you. And you were determined to sacrifice my one hope of returning my passion to defend your falsehoods." "I can solve this," she said. "And I will tell everyone how proud I am of your architectural work. I will fully support your job change. We can get past this." I sat opposite from her, immediately filled with pity. "Clara, do you even hear yourself? Even now, you are only offering to help me because you need something. That is not how partnerships work." "What are you saying?" she muttered, her eyes filled with dread rather than manipulation. "I'm saying I'm finished being your supporting character. I have accepted a formal consulting role with the downtown development. I start next week." "What about us?" she inquired, her voice small. "There is no we anymore," I replied gently, "and I have already packed my things. I'm staying with a friend until I can find my own place." "You cannot just leave," she cried, desperate. "We can work this out. I will go to treatment. I will do whatever it takes." I shook my head. "I've spent 8 years hoping you'd see me as an equal partner with my own goals. You had to face the repercussions of your conduct before you could provide that. And only because you needed my support. That is not love, Clara. That is just self-preservation." Her expression stiffened, the veneer of vulnerability falling away. "Fine, leave. But don't think it's over. I still have friends at the company. They'll see through the lies Thomas told them." "They're not lies if they're backed up by evidence," I reminded her. "In your own handwriting." She jumped up, her eyes burning. "Do you think this makes you some kind of man? Sneaking around behind my back, rummaging through my personal items. You are nothing without me. Nothing. Who do you think paid for most of this apartment? Who kept us afloat when your pathetic IT job had layoffs 3 years ago?" I picked up my duffel bag, strangely cool in the face of her fury. "I guess we'll find out who I am without you. That's what scares you the most, isn't it? The idea that I might actually succeed on my own." As I approached the door, she called after me, her voice suddenly smaller. "Oliver, please, I love you." I hesitated, feeling an odd combination of sadness and freedom. "I think you love the idea of me, the supportive husband who never challenges your spotlight. But that person doesn't exist anymore." The door closed behind me with a quiet click that felt more definitive than any slam could have. It's been 6 months since I left that flat and my former life. The downtown project is almost finished, with my courtyard design becoming one of the development's distinctive features. I've been engaged as a full consultant for 2 additional projects, and I'm taking night classes to finish my architectural degree. I wish I could say the change went smoothly, but Clara did not go down without a fight. she tried to turn mutual friends against me by telling them about how I abandoned her over a little job issue. She even stopped by my new flat once, oscillating between tears and threats. But the strangest part occurred 3 months after our split, when the company's inquiry was completed. Clara was dismissed for data manipulation, and on her way out, she appeared to have a total meltdown in the foyer. According to Thomas, who observed the entire incident, she yelled that everyone would be sorry if she disclosed the truth about the conspiracy against her. 2 days later, I got this desperate email from her. "Oliver, I need your help. They have ruined my credibility in the industry. Nobody will hire me. I realize I made faults, but I did not deserve this. You understand how hard I worked. Please inform Thomas that I've learned my lesson. Tell them that I deserve a second opportunity. Without my career, I have nothing. Please." I did not respond. After 8 years of putting her needs first, I was finally able to focus on my own journey. A common friend informed me last week that Clara had to return to her parents' home in Ohio. Her LinkedIn profile now displays her as a marketing consultant, which typically indicates that she is unemployed. Meanwhile, the senior partner at Thomas's firm has volunteered to sponsor me for an accelerated architecture program that will allow me to complete my qualifications in a year. I sometimes feel guilty about how things ended. I never wanted vengeance. All I wanted was respect and the opportunity to follow my own aspirations. But then I remember all those years of subtle insults, the humiliation at the party, and her readiness to ruin my potential in order to preserve herself. The guilt disappears rapidly after that. The greatest vengeance wasn't exposing her falsehoods or watching her career crumble. It was about recovering my own potential, a part of myself that I had almost forgotten existed. And, no matter what happens in my new work, I will never make myself little in order to make someone else feel big. If you're listening to this and see yourself in my story, if you've been putting your goals on hold to support someone who doesn't reciprocate, remember that it's never too late to rediscover who you were intended to be. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't fighting against how others perceive you. It's about resisting the limited version of yourself that you've come to accept. My stepmother mocked my little party business at my sister's wedding, but she had no idea. The entire reception was secretly run by my company. Claire, my younger sister, sent me an invitation to her wedding. Yes, that Claire, the golden child, the apple of my father and stepmother's eyes, the one I hadn't spoken to since severing ties with my entire poisonous family. I mean, the audacity, right? 7 years of nothing, no calls, no texts, no, "Hey, how's life?" And now I'm invited to this big, beautiful wedding. It wasn't only the invitation, however. A handwritten message was put inside, in Claire's distinctive handwriting. She wrote that she missed me and wanted to make things right. I stared at it for a long time, wondering whether it was a trick. So, was she serious? After everything that happened, and how they treated me, she wanted me back in the fold. Let me backtrack for context. Our mother died when I was 15 and Claire was 12. It devastated us, as you would guess. But while I was still processing my sadness, my father was out there moving on. He remarried a year later, and Denise, the stepmother from hell, moved in. From the start, she had an implicit objective to obliterate any traces of my mother. Family photos, gone. My mother's favorite decor, packed and thrown away. I was devastated. But Claire clung to Denise as if she were a savior. I could not blame her. She was only a youngster and she needed someone. But I couldn't stand Denise and the way she controlled everything. Things worsened as we grew older. By the time I started college, Dad refused to aid me financially. What's his reasoning? I needed to grow up and take responsibility. Meanwhile, he was showering Claire with everything: college tuition, a fresh new apartment, and even a car, all paid for without hesitation. I was working part-time, just scraping by, and trying to start an event planning firm from scratch. Denise, of course, regarded it as playing around, whereas Claire was the family's shining star, thriving in school, and seemingly deserving of their full support. I eventually had enough. After years of feeling like an outsider in my own family, I severed relations. No spectacular encounter, no major fallout, just silence. I stopped phoning and visiting and concentrated on improving my life. I immersed myself into my work and thrived. My business flourished beyond my wildest dreams, and I reached a point where I didn't need anyone. Not Dad, Denise, or Claire. This leads us back to the wedding invitation. At first, I considered throwing it away. Why should I care? They didn't care about me when I was fighting to get through school, save enough money for groceries, or in need of a family. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity or Claire's note. I couldn't tell if she was sincere, or if this was another one of Denise's ruses. Regardless, I chose to go. If nothing else, I felt I could come up, observe how things unfolded, and leave if things were too uncomfortable. Here's the thing. I wasn't going to go empty-handed. Despite our years of enmity, I still wanted to do something good for Claire. I offered to help her organize her wedding, giving her complete service from my company at a significant discount. She respectfully declined, stating that Denise had already taken care of everything. That stung a little, to be honest. But hey, I'd done my part. I'd extended an olive branch. The ball was in their court. So there I was, preparing for the big day. I knew coming inside that theater would reopen a lot of old wounds, but I told myself it was worth it. Perhaps Claire was sincere. Maybe this was her way of reaching out and making amends. I had low expectations, but I held out hope. The night before the wedding, I couldn't fall asleep. Memories of the past came flooding back. Holidays where I sat on the sidelines while Claire received all of the attention. Talks where Denise belittled me in front of Dad. And moments when I understood I wasn't a part of the family anymore. I persuaded myself it did not matter. I was attending the wedding for Claire, not them. And if things went wrong, I could always go. I had nothing to prove to anybody. The next morning, I dressed in my best suit, got into my car, and drove to the location. I arrived early since that is simply who I am. I'm a planner and always have been. The house was stunning. Lofty ceilings, beautiful flowers, the works. They had obviously spared no expense. As I walked through the doors, I felt a combination of nervousness and dread. This was the first time I had seen my family in nearly a decade. Will they accept me, ignore me, or tear me apart? I had no idea. Claire looked radiant when I spotted her. She approached me, hugged me, and thanked me for coming. For a while I thought, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. But then I saw Denise. She was standing to the side, observing me like a hawk. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and I could see she wasn't pleased I was present. "Welcome," she said, her voice full of phony kindness. "Still running that little party business of yours?" I gritted my teeth and grinned back. "It's going well, thanks." She sneered, plainly unimpressed, and shifted her focus to someone else. Denise's style is classic. I shrugged it off and found my seat. The ceremony was lovely, I'll give them that. Claire appeared really joyful, and for a moment, I forgot about the stress. But deep down, I knew the tranquility would not last. It was my family after all. Drama was unavoidable. Walking inside the reception area, I felt a knot in my gut tighten. It wasn't the venue, because let's be honest, it was magnificent. The chandeliers glistened like something out of a magazine. The tables were arranged with fine cutlery, and I could see my reflection. The floral arrangements appeared to have come straight from paradise. No, the knot was not part of the decor, it was inevitable. This was the first time I'd seen my family in almost 7 years, and I knew what was coming. I made my way to the seating chart, scanning the list for my name. When I discovered table 14, the knot in my gut became into a sinking feeling. I didn't need a map to find where that was. Weddings follow a pattern. Immediate family sits at the prime tables, followed by close friends, extended family, then random stragglers. Table 14 was clearly in the "we don't care if you're here" zone. When I arrived, I knew the insult was not subtle. My table mates were distant relatives I scarcely remembered. Aunt Lydia, who frequently mispronounced my name and smelled like mothballs, and Uncle Roger, who spent every family meeting droning on about his coin collection. What about the other 2 people at the table? I wasn't even sure who they were. Meanwhile, I noticed Claire's friends and Denise's family gathered around the dance floor. Dad and Denise were understandably center stage, relishing in their self-proclaimed very important person position. I couldn't help but giggle at myself. This was completely on brand for them. 7 years with no touch, and they still treated me like an afterthought. Fine. I did not come here for the seating arrangement. I came for Claire, or so I told myself. I attempted to maintain my cool. I poured myself a drink of water, looked around the room, and pretended I didn't care. But then the first landmine of the evening stepped right up to my table, Dad, and he was undeniably inebriated. Now I realized it wasn't going to be a pleasant interaction. Dad's drinking isn't nice, it's loud, rude, and entirely improper. True to tradition, he smashed his hand onto the table, making Aunt Lydia jump. "What the hell are you doing here, Leonard?" he mumbled. "You weren't supposed to come." I looked at him shocked. "I got an invitation," I responded calmly. I even took it out of my pocket for verification. "Claire invited me." He snorted. "You should have stayed where you belong. You're just here to embarrass us, aren't you?" Showing up with your little party business like it means something. His voice became louder, and I could feel eyes turning toward us. My face blazed with wrath and shame, but I remained silent. Before I could react, Denise was by his side, perfectly timed as always. "Leonard," she asked, her tone mockingly concerned, "do you even make enough to buy that suit, or is it rented?" She gave me a smug look, as if she'd given the punchline of the century. I glanced at her and then back at Dad, realizing there was no point. You can't argue with individuals like them, especially when they're drunk and full of themselves. So, I did the only thing I could. I stood up, adjusted my suit and said, "Excuse me." I went away without saying another word. But I didn't rush to the door. I wanted to clear my mind first. So I went out to the patio. The cool night air made me feel like I could breathe again. But the noises from inside continued to echo in my ears. Embarrassment. Small party business. God, they couldn't even let me live without destroying me. I leaned on the railing, looking out at the garden, trying to figure out what to do next. Leave without looking back? Go back inside and pretend none of this upset you? Neither option felt appropriate. I was deep in concentration when I heard the music start playing inside, cheerful, lively, and absolutely opposite of how I felt. That's when I knew I couldn't remain. I owed these folks nothing, least of all my time and energy. I made my way back inside, staying toward the room's boundaries to avoid being observed. On my way out, I looked over at the event workers. They were preparing for the following course, arranging plates with such efficiency that I couldn't help but marvel. Something about them seemed familiar. I slowed down, watching them move, and then it hit me. I knew these folks. These were not simply any staff personnel. They were my employees. My thoughts raced. My company had recently bought a smaller event planning company, and it turned out that this wedding was one of their projects. My team did the job, so it's no surprise that the setup looked so flawless. I experienced a peculiar mix of emotions, including pride, surprise, and above all, a developing sense of irony. Claire and Denise had hired my company without even knowing it. Perhaps they were aware of the situation, but chose to ignore it. In any case, the evening's power dynamics had abruptly transformed. And for the first time all night, I felt in control. I moved to the side and took out my phone, dialing my operations manager. When she responded, I spoke quietly. "Hey, quick question," I said. "This wedding, are we running it?" There was a pause followed by, "Yeah." "Why?" I couldn't help laughing. "No reason," I said. "Just wanted to confirm." I hung up the phone and returned my attention to the room. As I stood there, still processing the reality that my team was in charge of the wedding at which I had just been humiliated, a knowledge struck me like a freight train. Everything, the flowers, the lighting, the precisely scheduled dinner service, was handled by my company. Claire and Denise had mistakenly, or perhaps consciously, hired me to make their fantasy wedding come true. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Part of me wanted to storm back inside and declare, "Hey, guess what? All of this, it's mine." But the more calculating part of me knew there was a better way to handle this. After all, Dad and Denise had gone out of their way to disrespect me, treating me as if I did not belong. If they didn't want me there, they certainly didn't deserve the efforts of my staff. I called my operations manager again, my hands trembling not from fear but from adrenaline. "Hey Kate," I said calmly. "Can you confirm the client's contract for tonight?" "Sure, Leonard," she replied, perplexed. "Why?" "I'll explain later. Just tell me, does the contract include the usual termination clause?" Kate didn't even need to look it up. "Yep. Hostile or discriminatory behavior toward staff or management gives us the right to terminate services immediately." "Bingo. Perfect," I replied, a smile spreading across my face. "We're invoking it. Start packing up." There was a pause on her end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her brain. "Wait, what happened?" she inquired. "Let's just say the client has made it clear they don't want me, or us, here," I responded. "I'll fill you in later. Just trust me on this one." Kate did not hesitate. "Got it. I'll handle it." I hung up, my heart thumping. This was it. If Dad and Denise believed they could treat me like trash while still reaping the benefits of my labor, they were in for an unpleasant surprise. I wasn't doing this out of spite. Well, maybe a little. But because it felt right to do. I wasn't going to allow them mistreat me while benefiting from my hard work. It was not personal. It was business. Back inside, the event was in full swing. The music was playing, guests were socializing, and servers were serving the first course. On the surface, everything appeared to be in order, but I knew chaos was on its way. My staff worked like a well-oiled machine, discreetly packing equipment and supplies while maintaining appearances. Guests didn't see anything at first, which speaks to their professionalism. I remained outdoors, watching from the terrace as the plot developed. My workers started pulling down floral arrangements, rolling up tablecloths, and silently emptying up decorations. It was like witnessing a magician make an entire room disappear without anyone noticing. Denise may have been able to mock me, but she could not touch the quality of my work, or my workers. The first indicator of problems occurred when the lighting crew began disassembling the uplights in the room. A few guests saw, pointing and muttering to each other, but no one spoke out yet. Denise, of course, was too busy conducting court at her table to notice what was going on. Dad was nowhere to be found, likely nursing another drink. As more decorations removed, the whispers became louder. Finally, one of the servers approached Denise and said something to her. Her expression changed from smug to furious in a matter of seconds. She rose from her chair and marched across the room, her shoes clicking like gunshots across the marble floor. "What's going on? Why are they taking everything down?" I could hear her say from the patio. The server seemed really afraid. "I don't know, ma'am. You'll have to ask the event manager." That's when she noticed Kate, who was quietly directing the personnel. Denise stormed over, her screaming getting louder with each step. "What is this? What the hell are you doing?" Kate did not flinch. "We're following the terms of the contract, ma'am. Services are being terminated due to hostile behavior toward our management." Denise blinked. "What hostile behavior? Who even is your management?" Kate motioned toward the patio, where I stood. Denise turned, her gaze sharpening as she noticed me. I gave her a little wave and kept my demeanor as bland as possible. She stormed out, her face flushed with wrath. "You," she hissed. "You can't do this." "This is Claire's wedding, and this is my company," I responded calmly. "You made it clear earlier that you don't respect me or what I do, so why would you want my services?" Her jaw fell. "You're doing this to punish me, to ruin Claire's wedding." I shake my head. "This isn't about Claire. It's about the way you and Dad treated me. You can't humiliate me and then expect me to provide top-tier service. That's not how this works." Denise stammered, trying to come up with an answer. Kate approached me first and offered me a clipboard. "We're ready to roll out," she remarked. "Everything's packed?" She nodded. "Thanks, Kate. Great work, as always." Denise appeared to be about to burst, but I didn't stick around to find out. I handed her my lawyer's card and told her, "If you have any questions about the contract, please contact our legal team. Have a great evening." I walked away, leaving her dumbfounded. The aftermath was considerably more chaotic than I expected. By the time my crew arrived, the reception hall was nearly empty. The chandeliers hung from the ceiling, but there were no flowers, tablecloths, or uplights. Guests stood about, puzzled and whispering. Claire appeared to be on the point of tears, and for a single second, I felt horrible. But then I reminded myself that this was not about her. This was about standing up for oneself. The drive home from Claire's wedding should have been enjoyable. I mean, I had just organized one of the most famous mic drops in my life. But, when the taillights of my team's trucks faded from my rearview mirror, I couldn't help but feel conflicted. This was not how I had expected the day would go. Still, I knew I had made the proper decision. For the first time in a long time, I advocated for myself. Not just as a business owner, but as a person. And, while the night did not go as planned, I was not going to let that stop me from moving forward. This was only the beginning. I didn't have much time to think about it, though, because the fallout started almost immediately. About 20 minutes into my travel, the first signs of turmoil appeared on my phone. Text messages, missed calls and voicemails poured in. Denise, understandably, led the charge with a series of heated texts. They were long and meandering, full of claims that I had spoiled everything, even Claire's big day, out of spite. Everyone was more spectacular than the last. "I can't believe you did this to Claire," she said. "You're a selfish, vindictive little boy who can't handle someone else being happy. You ruined this family's reputation. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" Oh, she wasn't finished. The texts kept coming, each one more bizarre than the one before it. She accused me of undermining the wedding out of jealousy, called me sad, and even demanded a full refund for the occasion. Yes. Refund. She really believed I should repay her for the services my company had already rendered. as if she had some moral high ground to stand on. "You've embarrassed this entire family," she went on. "Do you know what people are saying about us now? I should have known better than to trust you with anything important. You are a failure, Leonard, and you always will be." The boldness was quite hilarious. I did not react, and instead silenced her phone number. She wasn't worth my time. Dad was not far behind. His voicemails were less coherent, but equally hostile. "I'll spare you the details, but the phrases selfish brat and I'll sue your ass were prominent. He even threatened to call the cops at one point, which really made me laugh." "What are you calling the cops for? Breaching a contract that he had no idea existed? Good luck with it." Claire sent the most shocking message though. I had expected her to be angry, but when I finally read her text, it was not what I expected. She wrote, "Why would you do this to me? I thought you came to support me. I didn't think you'd ruin my wedding." Oof. That one hit harder than I anticipated. It wasn't like Denise's vitriol or Dad's drunken rants. This felt like genuine pain. Claire and I hadn't talked in years, but I could still sense the pain in her words. I could tell she didn't understand why I made the decision I did, and I don't blame her. Claire had always been caught in the thick of the confusion. Denise had her claws in her from an early age, and Dad was not the type of dad who fostered independent thought. Claire had grown up in the same toxic atmosphere from which I had escaped, but instead of battling it, she had adapted. I wanted to respond to her and explain my perspective, but I wasn't sure it would make a difference. For a little moment, I worried if I had made a mistake. But then I remembered why I called in the first place. The next morning the situation worsened. True to form, Denise couldn't let it go. She began phoning people, family members, acquaintances, anyone who would listen, and manipulating the narrative to her advantage. By lunchtime, I'd received texts from 2 aunts and a cousin, all asking me to explain what had happened. To avoid repeating the same thing over and over, I sent a blanket text to the few relatives I still semi-trusted. Long story short, I was humiliated, disrespected and treated like an outsider. So I terminated my company's services in accordance with the terms of the contract. If you have any questions, please ask Denise. If you want to know the truth, ask the venue workers. I am done defending myself. One of my aunts replied nearly immediately. "Good for you," she wrote. "We watched how Denise treated you on Thanksgiving 5 years ago. She's always been terrible to you. I am simply sorry Claire got caught in the middle. Her support caught me off guard. I'd spent so many years assuming that my entire family had abandoned me that I hadn't considered the notion that some of them might be on my side. It was a minor consolation in the midst of a hurricane." Then came the unexpected reaction from the guests. By the afternoon, I began receiving emails and queries. Business queries. Apparently, news had passed among some of the wedding guests about what had occurred, and a number of them were impressed with how my crew handled the matter. One woman, whom I dimly recognized as Claire's in-law's family friend, contacted me to express her admiration for my staff's professionalism. "I heard what happened," she texted, "and I just wanted to say, your team handled everything with incredible grace. It was clear the issue wasn't with your company, but with the family. I'm hosting a charity gala in a few months and would love to work with you if you're available." Talk about a silver lining, I answered right away, thanking her for her nice remarks and arranging a time to discuss the event. Within a few hours, I had 3 more similar emails from different guests. It was surreal. The same wedding I'd been accused of wrecking was now providing free attention for my business. Denise's attempts to embarrass me had failed horribly. Of course, Denise wasn't finished. By the evening, she had taken her campaign against me digital. I noticed she had written a negative review about my company online, accusing us of being unprofessional and untrustworthy. The review was full of pure lies, stating that we arrived late, offered bad service, and abandoned the event without warning. Thankfully, I was ready for this. I quickly contacted my lawyer, and within hours, we had sent Denise a cease and desist letter informing her that any additional false remarks would be considered defamatory. The review was withdrawn the next day, and as far as I know, she has not attempted to submit anything else since. Denise reportedly decided to take her entitled tantrum to new heights. The next morning, while I was going through my emails, my lawyer called me. "You're going to love this one," she said, her tone tinged with irony. "Claire's family is threatening to sue you for breach of contract." I actually laughed aloud. "You're kidding," I replied. "On what grounds?" "They're claiming you abandoned the event and caused irreparable damage to Claire's wedding," I said. "They're demanding a full refund and additional damages for emotional distress." The stupidity of it nearly made me spit out my coffee. Emotional distress? Because I enforced a clause they agreed to? That's rich. My attorney giggled. Don't worry, Leonard. This is nothing more than a scare tactic. Their lawyer, if you can even call him that, sent a laughably vague letter with no specifics. I'll draft a response, but they don't have a leg to stand on. A few days later, Denise's lawsuit went to the next ludicrous level. Their lawyer, who I subsequently discovered was one of Dad's poker cronies, issued me another letter, saying that my choice to cease services had resulted in public humiliation and severe financial loss. He even included some inflated figures for the estimated cost of event decor and food services. What is the best part? The letter also accused me of being malicious and vindictive for removing the decorations during the event. The plaintiff's family was subjected to public embarrassment, the text reads. The abrupt removal of event services tarnished the reputation of the hosts and caused irreparable harm to their social standing. I couldn't stop giggling when reading that. Denise was sincerely attempting to portray herself as the victim in a setting she had completely contrived. The irony was so thick, it could be cut with a knife. However, my lawyer was significantly less amused. They're trying to throw mud at the wall and see what sticks, she explained on our next call. Their entire case hinges on the idea that you violated the contract, but the clause you invoked is ironclad. We'll respond formally, and I'll make it clear that pursuing this further will only waste their time and money. The legal back and forth lasted nearly 2 weeks. Denise and Dad persisted, most likely because their counsel lacked the courage to tell them they had no chance of winning. Meanwhile, my lawyer was working behind the scenes to gather all of the evidence we needed to permanently close this case. We had everything. Claire's original contract, which clearly detailed the termination provision, witness statements from my workers who were present when Denise made her unpleasant comments, and the pièce de résistance, security footage from the venue. The cameras had caught everything, even Dad's drunken outburst and Denise berating my crew. When their lawyer saw the tape, the case fell almost immediately. My lawyer sent a last letter outlining the information in great detail and informing them that if they continued to pursue the case, we will sue for defamation and legal fees. 2 days later, my lawyer emailed me to say the matter had been withdrawn. No additional action is required. The most unexpected consequence, however, came from Claire's new husband, Adam. He called me several days after the wedding. I almost didn't answer, but out of curiosity, I did. Hey Leonard, he said with an uneasy tone. I know Claire wants to talk to you, he said. She feels terrible about everything, she's just, I don't know, scared. She's stuck between you and Denise and it's tearing her up. I exhaled. I get it. But if she wants to talk, it has to come from her. I'm not going to chase her down. I'll tell her, he said. I hung up feeling oddly hopeful. Maybe Claire and I still had a chance to fix things. Perhaps not. In any case, I had finally stood up for myself, which was a victory in my opinion. Claire texted me a few weeks after the chaos had settled. Hello, can we meet up? I feel like we should chat. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure how to feel. On the one hand, there was Claire reaching out. The same Claire who had remained mute while Denise and Dad humiliated me at her wedding. The same Claire who had seen my company, which I had created from the ground up, be degraded and then walked away without saying anything. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the persistent doubt. What did she want from me now? Was this a true olive branch, or was she simply trying to smooth things over for her own benefit? Despite my better judgment, I consented to meet her. Sure, I responded. Let me know when and where. We met at a little cafe which I used to frequent when I was starting my business. It was neutral ground, yet I couldn't help but notice tension in the air as I went in. Claire was already there, drinking coffee. She looked up and gave an awkward forced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey, she remarked, motioning for me to sit. Hey, I said, taking a seat across from her. There was a lengthy gap before she spoke. I'm really sorry about everything that happened at the wedding, she told us. It got so out of hand, and I know Denise and Dad said some things they shouldn't have. I raised an eyebrow. Some things? She shuffled uncomfortably in her seat. Okay, a lot of things. But you have to understand, they were stressed. Weddings are a lot of pressure, and emotions were high. It wasn't personal. I gave out a sour laugh. Not personal, Claire? They called me an embarrassment. They mocked my business, belittled me, and basically told me I shouldn't have been there. How is that not personal? She sighed as if I were being unreasonable. Look, I'm not saying what they did was right, but you pulling out the way you did wasn't fair either. You ruined the reception, Leonard. People are still talking about it. There it was. the genuine reason she wanted to speak. So this isn't about what they said or did, I stated with an icy tone. This is about how it made you look. That's not what I'm saying, she said hastily, but the guarded tone in her voice suggested a different story. I just think you could have handled it differently. You didn't have to punish everyone because of what Denise and Dad said. I glanced at her, trying to figure out if she believed what she was saying, or if she was simply repeating Denise's narrative. Punish everyone? I repeated. Claire, they hired my company. They insulted me. The owner, in front of everyone. They didn't even bother hiding their disdain. You expect me to just stand there and take it? I expected you to think about someone other than yourself, she replied. This wasn't about you. It was my wedding. Do you know how humiliating it was when everything fell apart? People were asking me what happened, and I didn't know what to say. I had to deal with the fallout while you just walked away. I leaned back in my seat, astonished. So that's what this is about. Not what they did. Not how they treated me. It's about how it inconvenienced you. That's not fair, she exclaimed, her voice rising significantly. I'm trying to fix this, but you're making it impossible. Fix it? I repeated. Claire, you haven't once acknowledged what I went through. You're sitting here blaming me for standing up for myself, because it didn't fit into your perfect little wedding narrative. Do you even hear yourself? She crossed her arms and her expression hardened. Maybe I wouldn't have to say this if you hadn't made everything about you. I invited you to the wedding because I wanted you there. I was trying to include you. But you turned it into a disaster. I felt a strong aching in my chest, but it wasn't sadness. It was clarity. This was not a misunderstanding. Claire was not stuck between Denise and Dad. She was exactly like them. Entitled, manipulative, and incapable of accepting responsibility for her actions. I stood up and tossed some cash on the table to cover my coffee. You know what, Claire? I'm done. With you, with Dad, with Denise, all of it. I've spent my whole life being the scapegoat for this family, and I'm not doing it anymore. Her eyes expanded. Leonard, wait. No. I replied firmly. You don't get to rewrite this. I came to your wedding because I thought maybe things had changed. But all I got was the same disrespect I've dealt with my whole life. And now you're sitting here blaming me for having the audacity to walk away from it. I'm done, Claire, for good. She sat astonished as I walked out of the cafe. That was the last time I spoke with Claire. She sent a few texts in the days that followed, but I didn't react. There was nothing more to say. She had shown me who she truly was, and I believed her. I cut Denise and Dad totally out of my life, and it was the best move I'd ever taken. In the months that followed, my firm grew, due in part to a slew of new clients who were impressed by how skillfully my team managed the wedding disaster. Denise and Dad may have attempted to break me down, but all they did was make me stronger. And Claire? She faded into the background of my memories. I stopped worrying about whether she'd ever view things differently because it didn't matter. Family is not about blood, it's about respect, and no one had showed me any.